All right. It's time for Midnight Metal. Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm coming at you with Midnight Metal episode number 18, yo! My God, you metalheads have never ceased to disappoint me. This has become one of my favorite things to do all week is do some Midnight Metal. And let's get some business out of the way. Tomorrow, we have a very special guest on Midnight Metal. We have CK Smile of the Swiss metal band Chaosium joining us on Midnight Metal, joining Dave Parker and myself. If you don't know the band Chaosium, go to either their website, chaosium.com, or go to YouTube and delve in to their Midnight Madness, or better yet, their metal songs. Oh yeah, come and meet CK Smile tomorrow night. I mean, I'm really stoked. We have a celebrity guest on the show tomorrow, a real metalhead, somebody that knows more about metal than I'll ever know, but he's coming on this show, and you should be here, questions in hand. Ask him whatever you want. What's it like to grow up in Switzerland and be a metalhead? I don't know. Does he ski in Davos? I've been there. Perhaps he did. I have no idea. We'll find out tomorrow. My God! It's amazing, once again, to be here on... I didn't know if this show was going to even take. I didn't know if you people were going to dig it. I didn't know if there was anybody that was going to watch this show. But goddamn, you people, you've made me proud. You're always here for it. You stay here to 5 in the fucking morning. This show's fucking incredible. You guys, people are there going, Rob, could you please move your mouth away from the microphone? Real recording artists know how to do that. Listen, man, I am not a real recording artist. I'm a middle-aged YouTuber acting out his childhood fantasies right here on the internet for all to see. And you are joining me as you should. Because you know what? I'm having a good time, and I hope you are too. You know why? Because you should just live your life and be metal. One ping only. The Red October, fucking metal. Yes, it is. And of course, as you know, later tonight, you can be on this show. If you have a good webcam and a good microphone, get ready, because you can come on this show and you can tell me what's on your mind. It's the Night Circus. If you're an Almost Famous fan, and by God, if you are, you know what's great about it? One of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, Cameron Crowe's Almost Famous, announced for 4K Steelbook, both versions of the film. My God, I'm so excited about this. You know what else I'm excited about? A Mexican movie that's coming out called New Order, which, by the way, truth be told, have not seen it. Haven't seen it. I put in the trailer at the top of this chat. If you look in the live chat and go to the very top, you can see. You might have to go back. You might have to go back to the beginning of the show, but you can see the trailer for New Order. And in a way, it's kind of like The Purge, or it's kind of like The Hunt. But New Order is a movie that takes place in Mexico City, I believe, where a very wealthy family is throwing a marriage. Two families coming together, and then they're attacked by radical leftists. And there's murder and mayhem and rape, and society falls apart around them. And it sounds like this movie was made for me, but it's been burning up the festival circuit. Neon picked it up for distribution, and I'm fascinated by this because I think it speaks to our time. And I've always said that I used to think I was a left-leaning classical liberal, but things have changed, and I'm not going to get political. Although I'd say getting political is metal, but this movie's going to get political. And I wanted to share, because I don't think people know about it, I'm really excited to see this movie. I see it as an exploitation film with a social conscience, and what is more metal than that? But I figured you guys might not know about it. I wanted to bring it to your attention. Watch the trailer, and I'm going to read this New York Times review. New Order review, a revolutionary nightmare or a recurring dream. The Mexican director, Michael Franco, who joins the great pantheon. I mean, my God, I don't know what's in the water in Mexico, but let me tell you, I'm going to start drinking it. Yes, sir, because the Mexican filmmaking contingent is changing the world. Inarritu, Cuarón, Guillermo del Toro. My God, the Mexicans. What are you guys serving up down there? Because, look, I just like mole and that kind of thing, but I think the films that are coming out of Mexico are some of the most, and the filmmakers are some of the most vibrant ever. So why we would want to limit Mexican immigration in this country, I do not know, because by God, you Mexican filmmakers are changing the world of cinema. New Order review, a revolutionary nightmare or a recurring dream. The Mexican filmmaker Michael Franco frequently devises narrative puzzles that hinge on unusual and emotionally fraught moral and ethical dilemmas. They're usually on an intimate scale, as his 2016 medical drama Chronic. His latest film, New Order, which created a sensation at home and on the festival circuit, takes a contained approach to a big event, Insurrection. Take that, GOP. An opening montage featuring many shots that will recur throughout the narrative is practically surreal, flashing images of destruction and splatters of green liquid. The movie settles in on a lavish Mexico City home where a family and friends are celebrating the coming wedding of Marianne. As she and her moneyed fiancé frolic with the guests, disturbances from outside start oozing in. Soon the house is invaded by violent looters in face paint. The sight of what appears to be indigenous people ripping the jewelry from the wealthy white guests plays out like Tucker Carlson's worst nightmare. All of this feels deeply, schematically reactionary on director Franco's part. But his ultimate vision, which reveals itself in a series of shocking story turns, is bleaker and more acidic than you may have guessed. Along the way, Marianne is kidnapped and subjected to prison depredations that recall the exploitation work of another Franco, the Spanish director Jess. These and other scenes are meant to be hard to watch, and they are. The plot corkscrews into a parable of fascism via a don't let a crisis go to waste philosophy. Franco practically dares the viewer to call his conclusion far-fetched, and for better or worse, the director's dynamic filmmaking makes some of his projections stick. This movie is 88 minutes long, and I have to tell you, you know me, I grew up with exploitation cinema, but most great exploitation cinema has something to say. This movie I've been following this, tracking this, shot to the top of my list. Why did I think about talking about it today, though? Why today? There's movies that are in my head space that I'm just like, oh, I got to see that. And they just stick there. But why today? I'll tell you why today. Today I felt like I was reading things or people sent me emails or DMs or texts or whatever. And I felt like I got a lot of name calling, a lot of things thrown my way. I was called a lot of things. Ists, old, white, cis, all these things. I mean, I'm getting more and more of that. It seems like almost every day people are wanting to hang labels on me. And for me, this is sort of a new thing. I mean, I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, like I I was never branded other than being a nerd or a geek or an imagination connoisseur. That's what label I always had put on me. Nerd. Even though could have been kind of the coolest guy in the room sometimes, just saying. But I never got called any names other than that. Now there is a plethora of names that are being thrown my way. And I find that strange. I'm like, I haven't changed. My political ideology, my imagination connoisseur ideology, yes. Perhaps, I will admit, perhaps I'm a little harsh on the garbage fire that is Star Trek Discovery. But you know what? Deservedly so. Deservedly so. It gives me no pleasure not to like Star Trek. Do you think that I've really had fun the last 12 years hating Star Trek, my favorite franchise? I have not. And my only thing is like, hey, do better. They're giving you tens of millions of dollars. Why don't you read a couple of science fiction books between, seasons? Do the work. I do a lot more work for a lot less, let me tell you. I'd love that cushy job you have, and my Star Trek might be good. Of course, that's easy for me to say, sitting behind a computer talking to you. But anyway, a lot of names being thrown around, and I'm like, my whole thing is like, let's be inclusive. Let's have fun, people. We're going to be gone soon. Why aren't we having a good time? I'm sitting there telling you right now, you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity, as you know, I wouldn't call it my philosophy, it's just a fact. You're the only one of you, unless you're a twin, that exists in the entire infinitude of the universe. And there was a video that dropped online today that zoomed into the Andromeda Galaxy and it pulled out. And it showed the hundreds of millions of stars. I'll tell you a funny story. Maybe it's not funny, but I was working on the Star Trek experience that was in the Hilton in Las Vegas, 1997. And my job was I had to cut all the videos, Star Trek videos that would appear in the museum and all that. It was the time when National Geographic put out its first picture. I think it was called the Deep Something, where the Hubble telescope had taken a first photograph, and it was like, imagine focusing on a grain of sand, right? But if so here's your focal point. It's the size of a grain of sand. No, it's not fucking. It's a focal point where the camera's pointing. Grain of sand. And this grain of sand, like that's all it sees, all the way back to the infinitude of the universe. And it was a fold-out picture. And it looked like thousands of stars, but it wasn't stars. It was galaxies. Each galaxy with millions of stars in it. And I'd never had this problem before. But so I took this out, and I was cutting on the Avid. I had a room to myself, and I was editing. And I put this picture up, and I had a real problem. I was literally, the only time in my life, I didn't have a middle-aged crazy. I didn't buy some convertible Corvette to make myself feel better. What I did was I looked at this picture, and I had this soul-crushing existential crisis where I'm thinking, well, shit, man, nothing I do is going to resonate anywhere in the rest of the universe. Doesn't matter what. Doesn't matter how good these videos are. I hadn't made a movie yet. Maybe one day I'll direct a film. None of it matters. None of it. And for weeks, I was contemplative about this picture. I'm like, my God, how can I live after they publish this picture in National Geographic, knowing that nothing I do matters to the rest of the universe? So this went on for weeks. It was affecting my life. It was affecting my job. I couldn't get an erection. I was just completely distracted. I'm like, nothing matters. Life is meaningless. I felt like a Frenchman. Let's talk about Proust or some shit like that. I just was, But then, after weeks of doubting my existence, I came to a realization, not quite the realization that Zaphod Beeblebrox came to in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when he was thrust into the total perspective vortex. I've said this before, but perhaps you don't know. If you haven't read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I'll break it down for you. So there's a torture device that is used in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy universe called the total perspective vortex. And what they do is they stick you into this, And you get to see yourself in relation to the rest of the universe, and you realize how utterly insignificant and meaningless you are. You could be a scion of a great family, a captain of industry. You could be the richest man in the world. You could sleep with the most beautiful women or beautiful boys or whoever you want to sleep with, guys, girls. Who am I to say? Transgender? It doesn't matter. Whatever floats your boat, you can sleep with them. You're that cool. You can sleep with anybody. If you're that guy and you go into the total perspective vortex, you come out quivering, realizing that your life is meaningless on a universal scale. I always love that. But one of the great lessons in life is in this book. So in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, one of our protagonists, Zaphod Beeblebrox, the president of the galaxy, goes into this, and you think he's going to emerge a broken man. And he comes out, and I think it's the Vogons. They're like, my God, you've been into the vortex? He's like, yeah. And you've seen yourself in relation to the rest of the universe? Zaphod's like, yeah. What did you discover? Zaphod's like, what I knew all the time. I'm a really great guy. Didn't I tell you? I'm Zaphod Beeblebrox. And that's what happened to me. After like a couple of weeks of staring into the abyss, the galactic, the universal, the infinitude abyss, like, I finally realized, I'm like, you know what? My life might not matter to the universe, but it matters to me. And I thought, that was a shocking revelation brought to me by a fold-out National Geographic. I mean, it took a while, but I was like, yeah, man, the important thing is you got to enjoy your own life. You've got to have a good time. And now we live in a world where everybody wants to brand you and tell you something, pigeonhole you, put you into some thing. They're going to blame you for the last 2,000 years of history. And I'm like, well, you know, if it wasn't for, white cis males, I mean, we might not be where we're at right now. I'm like, you know what? You got to start thinking about paved roads and stop signs and all that stuff. We're all here in this together. Don't we all use them? Hot and cold running water. Thomas Crapper inventing the first flush toilet. My God, what an invention. What took him so long? But I'm like, and everybody's out there, like, you go on the internet and there's all these articles and people want to brand you. It doesn't matter who you are. You know, whatever shape, size, color, creed, religious preference, sexual preference, however you identify across these 28 known galaxies, people want to brand you. They want to make you into something, tell you who you are. This is something new. You know how I think about the world? You know how I want to brand people? Here's how I brand them. I brand them, their response when I say, hey, man, how's it going? And their answer, that's pretty much how I define them. Hey, all I need is an acknowledgement. If I say hello to somebody, and I say hello to everybody, if they say hello back to me, that's it. That's all I need to know. Tonight, Elizabeth and I were walking Gilbert and Tallulah, and a man that we see kind of every night lurking in the darkness, walking his dog as well, finally walked up to us. And our dogs, Gilbert and Tallulah, who like every dog, walked up to this dog. This was a tiny dog. This dog somehow either pulled away, ran down the street, ran down one block, turned a corner, ran another block. This guy bolted for his dog. The harness the dog was in was on the ground. So was the waist bag that he was carrying. I picked up both. I ran after him. Ran down one street, turned left, went down another street. The dog was making a beeline for a very busy street in Pasadena. We're both running, old, middle-aged men. I was older than him. Like, I had his harness. I knew he needed it for the dog. Never thought, just acted. Knew nothing about this guy. I knew one thing, though. He was a dog owner, which makes him okay in my book. Tracked him down. I was panting. We're both like, dog was scared by my dogs. I felt responsible. I said, here, man, I got your harness. And I'm like, he was very nice. I said, I apologize, our dogs, you know. He said, don't worry about it, man. And I figured, here's a guy I don't know. You know, picked up his harness, ran after his dog. And I figured, you know what, this is the way it should be. This is the way life should be, man. This is the epitome. Uh-oh. The epitome of what's fucking metal. And you know what that is? It's being aware and recognizing the fellow human beings you might come across on this planet. There's nothing more metal than that, because you know what? You cannot be a fucking metalhead by yourself. By yourself. So all this divisiveness we see, this is decidedly unmetal, man. You never know when some guy or some woman or somebody you come across, their dog's going to run away. And that's a question you have to ask yourself. What are you going to do in that moment? Are you going to run after that dog and help that person? Or are you just going to keep walking with your own dogs? The answer is you help that person out. No matter what. And I feel that this movie, New Order, is talking about the way the world is now. I think everybody is embracing. They like being mean. They like hurting people. I mean, it's too hard. It's too rough. It's too rough to make your own way. It's too rough to carve your own niche out in the world. It's tough. It's a hard place to be. So let's get angry and my raison d'etre now is going to be to call other people names and be angry and put myself in a position where I'm the authority. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with your life. That is not metal. Don't like it, but New Order, as an exploitation film, it shows. I love it because as a classical left-leaning liberal, I love the fact that the left-wingers are the people that ultimately, they're just tired of all this. They're you know what? My life didn't work out. I'm going to blame everyone else, so I'm going to decide I'm going to hate the wealthy, hate the rich, even though that maybe those people worked really hard for what they had. It's not necessarily something that was given to them, but whatever. I love the fact that this movie is an exploitation film that has a philosophy. Like Videodrome. Could be dangerous, just like Videodrome. It has a philosophy. So, yeah, Darth Plato. I'm really beginning to like Darth Plato. He's a very active member of the Post-Geek Singularity community. He has very interesting things to say. I think Darth Plato is not necessarily a Sith Lord. Maybe well, if he's really a student of Plato, I like that he's Darth Plato because that says something. Darth Plato says, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. One of the greatest quotes ever uttered by any human being. That was, of course, uttered by the Reverend Martin Luther King. And he was absolutely correct. My God, he would be disgusted by our current identity politics. Tribalism, all that. You know what? All I need to know is if you're Post-Geek Singularity members, if you believe in that, you're an imagination connoisseur, you're my kind of people. Imagination connoisseurs know the world is bigger than they are. And they're looking for that world. They want to be a part of that world. They want to be a part of that universe. God bless you all. Park your shuttlecrafts in my shuttle bay and let's enjoy one another. Let's enjoy our differences. Let's enjoy the places that you come from that I might never go to. But you know what? I will learn about them through you. Because you're the only you in the entire infinitude of the universe, man. Think about that. You can get up every morning knowing you are the most precious commodity on the planet Earth. I should start a cult based on that, although that would be even more maniacal, even more egomaniacal. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. Let's see if I have any midnight metal letters. I think I do. Would you like me to read one? Because I would. I know I would. So wait, bear with me. Bear with me. I don't know why. There we go. Let's see. I do have, well, I have more. Ash, our friend Ash Chowan, has sent me more Midnight Metal artwork, which I'm going to save till tomorrow, but I will read his letter. Hello, Rob. I'm loving the influx of content from the Burnettwork as of late. By the way, YouTube just 86th 100 of my subscribers, which is okay because they probably weren't real anyway. But it's demoralizing. You know, you get subscribers and then, oh my God, I was past 39,000 subs and now I'm back to 38,955 or something. But anyway, I'm loving the influx of content from the Burnettwork as of late. Midnight Metal has become a weekly staple, and now so too has Midnighter. Thank you for all the amazing work you do, the amazing moderators, and the rest of the Burnettwork crew do to make these shows possible. As you might know, you saw pictures of me in various metal bands, which, you know, I don't want to brag. I mean, I haven't yet talked about my time as the lead singer of Stryper, but one day I will. But thanks to Ash Chauhan, he made some great pictures, and he made more. I've used them in the opening credits. I'm going to incorporate these in tomorrow's show. I do want to apologize if I caused offense a few weeks back when I unearthed and showcased some crazy pics of you from your raging rock star days. I know that's a side of you that you'd much rather keep under wraps. But with the popularity of Midnight Metal, I think this rock star Rob side of you should be fully embraced. Well, Ash, you know, it's all out there on the internet to discover. So, you know, my long and illustrious mid-'80s to mid-'90s metal career is something I kind of downplay because I decided to go all in on filmmaking. But, you know, at first I was a little upset that you might have accessed those pictures and that part of me that I thought only existed on the dark web, but apparently you found them, so that's okay. Ash goes on to say, I went down the internet rabbit hole and was able to unearth some more pics of you in your rock star days prior to becoming a filmmaker. I never knew how much of a musical maestro you were. I have to say that your chameleon-like nature as a rock star and making music in every imaginable genre is something truly awe-inspiring. I hope these pics bring back fond memories for you. Stay metal. Well, okay, I have to say that, you know, my frontman persona as part of Rammstein is something that not a lot of people might have remembered, but it's true, and I'll put this up there because I mean Ash did find this picture, and I'll put everything up soon, but I mean, I'm going to show this. I'll put the rest of the pictures, but I'll do this one because I think, you know, I was particularly proud of the time that I did spend in Rammstein. It was a great band, really a good bunch of folks. So, Ash, I mean, you know, a lot of people wonder, well, Rob, where are you in this picture? I leave that up for you to decide. I mean, there you see me. I'm a little buffer than I was, but check me out. I think I look pretty good there. On the right, I look pretty good. I mean, you know, it was fun being in Rammstein. Sends in a super chat sticker. Diamond in the rough. Yeah, there you go. So what can I say, man? Rammstein was a good time. We had a good time. You know what? We had great roadies when I was a part of Rammstein. Just so you know, shout out to the roadies. Always good. I hope these pics bring back fond memories for you. Stay metal, friend. Well, Ash, I will show more of those. I'm going to incorporate them. Since you've, you know, unearthed them, I might as well, you know, I might as well show those things. You know, it's funny. El Necron says, greetings, Rob. I didn't know you tore it up in Slayer in the early days. Ha, ha, ha. I hope this gives you a chuckle. You know, it's amazing to me that everyone is finding out that, you know, I thought I was just going to end up being a great session player. I didn't realize that all of these bands would think that I was essential to their success. But apparently, I mean, they do. And that's very flattering. And when people like El Necron and Ash find these pictures, I just, you know, once again, I didn't want any glory when I was joining these bands or anything. So my stint with Slayer was only a couple of months. But I want to say, I mean, I thought I shredded. I thought as a member of Slayer, I did an okay job. I thought it was all right. But, you know, I want to thank El Necron for unearthing this photo. Not one of my better looks, although I did really like that guitar. It was versatile, and I could actually spin it around my neck, and it was really easy to do, almost like a hula hoop thing. It was great. So I really liked my time with Slayer. It didn't last as long as I would have liked, but it was very exhausting playing the speeds that they require of you to play in that band. I mean, it was tough, but I want to thank you, El Necron, for bringing back that part of my life, because that's, I didn't think people remembered, but it's nice to know that you're all looking out for me, and that apparently you like this show, and that's great. I think it's fantastic. So thank you for that. Terrier says, check Messenger. You just got donated a Kirk. Love you, bruh. Well, Terrier showed me a sideshow quarter-scale statue of James T. Kirk that I used to have. But it suffered a mishap and shattered in a move. So Terrier asks me, all the way from Norway, asks me to check my messages. Well, Terrier, you can find me live here, which you did, and I will look at these messages when they show up. There you are. Terrier says in this message he has sent me on Facebook, he says, well, Robert, this is your second chance. I picked this beauty up at a garage sale with the Connery one. Someone put Connery and Kirk in a garage sale. I paid $15 for it. I know it's worth more, but I'd like to donate it to the Rob Observatory. I need the space for a new figure, and to me, Kirk is best in the movie incarnation. I've seen TOS, but I prefer the movies. Well, that's understandable. I get it. I know, but Terrier, you're a prince among lesser men. Thank you very much. I will put him in a prized position. Tim Possible, or as we like to know him as Kylo Ren, says, I don't think you're ready for Tim. Well, I think I'm always ready. Up to you to decide. Perhaps I'm wrong. Combatant 629 says, hey, Rob, I hope you're well. I had a question about Superman Returns. What happened to Richard at the end? Did he stay with Lois? Truly, I have a lot of questions about Superman Returns. I'd love to interview you about it sometimes. Well, you can. You can. I keep thinking, I was moving stuff around. I still have all my tapes I shot in Australia. Like, I have 1,500 hours of material I shot in the making of Superman Returns. I should just, one day, like I did with Hills Run Red, do a new documentary, put it out. I already said she sent that super chat. Gotta love. She always brings sensuality and sexuality into any conversation. That's good. Throg, our man Throg is here. The man Throg, I just want to point out, if it wasn't for Throg, in the early days of the pandemic, I would not have had a clean bum, because Throg hooked us up with toilet paper, which inexplicably we couldn't get. I still don't understand why that happened. Throg says, I'd rather be hated for what I am than to be loved for what I am not. Chuck D of Public Enemy. Absolutely, goddammit. Hell yeah. Jason S. says, I think we park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay, though I park on the right side and you park on the left side. And sometimes you try parking way too far left and crash into the shuttle bay, almost taking out the ship. Come on now, Jason. I wouldn't consider myself a far leftist. I don't. I'm a humanist. I'm a futurist. I'm a universalist. What I don't like is when people don't solve problems. I'm a Hollywoodist. Everyone talks about Hollywood elites. I'm like, everyone in Hollywood came from somewhere else. They just got successful in the entertainment business, which is more visible than others. But as I've said once before, I mean, by God, like today, I mean, whatever political side of the aisle you are on, if you watch any video of what happened at the Capitol on January 6th, why wouldn't you want to look into it? More people died in that Capitol insurrection than died in Benghazi. And how long did they? I'm just saying. I mean, common sense. Common sense. Why not investigate everything as a matter of course? Why would you not want to investigate something? Find out the truth. Isn't that what you want? I don't know. But Jason, you might be right. You can have the right side. I'll have the left side. I'm not going to crash into any walls, man. Come on, man. Like I said, I'm a humanist, a futurist. Got to tell you, the only time I drink now is on Friday and Saturday nights. I can't. I used to love to work on my alcoholism, but now I don't. A lot of keto, a lot of water, a lot of carrots and celery, a lot of greens. I swear to God, the lovely Elizabeth Gwendolyn Bell has I'm eating more vegetable matter than I've eaten, I think, in the last month, than I've eaten in the last 50 years. So kudos to her. She's the only girl I would do that for, just so you know. Anyway, on this show, so the New Order, really want to see it. Crazy leftists are murdering the elites, which, let's face it, at the end of the day, what I really feel, you know what I feel about the world now? We're finally just admitting that we just want to kill each other. You know what? I'm going to get mad. I'm going to go to my form. I mean, I'm not. I'm speaking it like we saw what happened up in Northern California. I'm going to go back to my workplace with a gun, and I'm going to kill people that I hated. I mean, literally, apparently, that's what's going on. When did it come to this? I mean, when I got depressed, man, I'd go see a movie. Or I would buy, anime. And I'm not being flippant. I'm just saying, there are better ways. Talk on YouTube. Start a channel on YouTube. That's what I think. It's scary now. Everybody needs to take a deep breath, I think, and remember, life can be pretty good. And I think that we all have to remember, we, my friends, you, I, everyone, there's only one of each of us. Why be so quick to want to get rid of them, rid of our friends, our fellow members of the human race? Life's good. You can learn from everyone. And by the way, if you don't know this, the Burnettwork, I have started a new thing today, which is, I always say, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And if you haven't heard this already, because you weren't here earlier, I have started a new thing. And the first thing is going to be, it's a new thing, and it's called Everyone's Story. All right, and that's what it's called. And let me show you. Here's in case you didn't get it. Everyone's Story. This is going to be a weekly thing I'm going to do from now on. And so, in case you don't know, here it is. Everyone's Story. What is everyone's story? Well, as you know, I always say, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. So everyone's story is going to be, I'm going to give you a topic on every Friday. Now I guess it's Saturday morning. And if you choose to do so, I want you to record yourself telling me your answer to this. Make it less than 5 minutes. I'm going to take these videos, and I'm going to play them live every following Friday. But the deadline is, I'm going to give you the topic on Friday. You got to send me your video by the following Wednesday, so I've got 2 days to prep. And I'm going to turn these into little videos. I'm going to play them on Robservations, but I am also going to make standalone videos and put them up on the Burnettwork. Now, I thought you'd find this interesting. The first topic, and I mentioned this on Robservations, so I don't mean to bore you, but the first topic that I'm going to ask you to tell me about, and I hope that you find this relatively somewhat interesting. I mean, I hope you do. The first topic is going to be, get this, that's right, I want to know about your first kiss. Who's the first person you kissed? So if you choose to accept this mission, and I know you will, I want you to make a video of yourself. Use your phone, use your computer setup. Just make sure we can see you and that we can hear you. Make sure it's reasonably technically competent. Just record yourself. I mean, your phone, you've got if you got an iPhone or an Android, whatever phone you have, Samsung, I want you to just record a video and tell me the story. Keep it under 5 minutes about the first time, the first kiss you had. And as I said, it could have been a giant Saint Bernard who came up and laid one right on your kissers, slobbering. Could have been an aunt who got a little overly familiar, or it could, the first time you kissed a significant other. So there's a place on the website, theburnettwork.net. Send me your video, upload your video, and on every Friday. So the deadline for this week's question is June 2nd. That's Wednesday, and then I'm going to put together the videos, and the following Friday, meaning following this Friday, it's now Saturday, but I'm going to play the videos. Hopefully, maybe I won't get any. I have no idea. Maybe I won't get any. Who knows? But maybe I'll get some. And I'm very curious to hear what you all think. So join me on this quest. Norwegian Kryptonian sends me in a super chat and says, "We're just a few years away from Running Man." Oh my God! Yes. By the way, for those of you who've only seen the movie, I highly recommend Stephen King's novel, The Running Man, that's already been turned into a film with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Richard Dawson, but it was published under a pseudonym originally of Richard Bachman. It was part of the Bachman books, but I believe it's been released. Check out The Running Man. That book, oh my God, we're living in that time. ES sends in a super chat and said, "I saw the movie New Order. There's a military coup that crushes both the leftist and the wealthy. Greetings from Mexico." Geez, ES, you could have said spoiler alert. But yes, that's I'm a big fan of Mexico. I used to hang out there all the time. I used to go down to Baja, and I've been to Mexico City. Love it. And did you like the movie, though? That's what I'd love to know. Darth Plato is back and says, "The weirdest depression I ever had was in Paris, 1914. A man rented a room on the 9th floor of a hotel. He then inflated a hot air balloon just outside and then rigged the window pane into a makeshift guillotine. His head floated all over Paris." I know I should probably know that, but that is quite the quote, and I wish I actually could have seen that. That could have been something amazing, Darth Plato. Knowing you, I'm sure that has some amazing historical significance. I, of course, am not smart enough to know immediately what that is, but I think using the newfangled contraption known as the internet, maybe I can find out. This is a wow. There's all these math problems. Well, I don't even know what to say about that. That's amazing. But thank you for saying that. Says New Order is a stark contrast to Roma. Yes, because in Roma it was the right wing that was rioting, not the left wing. But yes, I think the New Order and Roma could be a great double feature. I'm looking forward to that. Tell you what, you know, on this show on Midnight Metal, people get to come on this show. I bring you on. Part of the fun of Midnight Metal and the Midnighter is to meet those of you who are members of the Post-Geek Singularity community. Now, I'm thinking, why not bring some of you on? Now, I would ask you, if you've been on the show before, if you've been on Midnight Metal, I would ask that perhaps hang back a little bit and wait for people who haven't been on the show to be on the show. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to put the link in the live chat. If you have a good microphone, a good camera, now is the chance. Come on board. But again, if I've already seen you on the show, allow someone new to come on. Unless it's like, because she's like a regular on the show. But we'll see who will come on this show. I don't know. It's always fun to have new people come on the show. You never know what they're going to say, where they're coming from, what they're going to do. That's what this show's all about, because you just don't. Oh, hey, look who's here. Wow. It's funny. She just pops into the chat, but I can hear you. I can hear me. I can hear the show repeating. Do you have headphones? Oh, wait. Hang on. You know what? She can't. Wait. Can you hear me? It's better now. It's better. I love it. I love when you say that. That's fantastic. Because you know what? I believe I practice my ladies first philosophy in all things. A lot of people don't quite understand what I mean by that, but the people that need to know, and they understand. So anyway, I'm gonna bring our friend into Midnight Metal tonight. You know her, you love her, you've seen her before. Now I know people can be like, "Well, Rob, you just said we'd like to have somebody new in the show." Yeah, but she's kind of like a semi-regular here, so I consider her almost like she's like the Joan Rivers when Joan Rivers would come on and well, you know, because she would come on she would fill in for Johnny Carson, like. Yeah, that's what I mean. If I couldn't do this show, I could call you up and go, "Hey, could you do Midnight Metal?" You'd be there. So
Yes.
welcome to the channel. Maybe I should put your name in under the lower third. We've also got Pat Finch. Pat Finch. Hey, Pat. Oh, you're upside down again, man.
Hey, Pat.
We can't. I don't know how does your. What are you doing with your camera before you come on the show? That it's upside down. I don't know, man. It's a little suspect to me. This time you're doing it on your iPad. That's what she said. And I was like, that's when I asked her. I said, "Can I get a little more of a low angle?" Yeah, there you go. That's what I want to see. I'm just kidding. Did I mean to say that? I didn't. Oh, wait. Yeah, I did. So, how are you doing tonight?
I am fantastic. It's Midnight Metal, Rob. Midnight Metal.
Fuck yeah, man. I can't believe this show is going on. You know, every one of these ridiculous shows that I create on this channel, people are there for it. I mean, you know, we got 171 people here tonight. And that's just, it's not even one yet.
The show is not ridiculous. We need this show. We need to be able to have a place where we can talk about things that are concerning us. And there's a lot that's concerning us right now. There really is. There's a lot to talk about.
Well, hang on. Okay. Now that you say that, I'll bite. What is concerning you?
Yeah. I think it's interesting, as I said in my mention before, that New Order versus Roma. Just a few years ago, Roma was, you know, the talk of the town, and everybody was saying how fantastic the film was and how it would change things. And look at this, who we brought in, these new people who had never acted before, and look at what a great representation of this is. And now we have a film that seems to be the polar opposite of which feels to reflect the riots. I mean, I think that they almost, like, you know, had some sort of a prediction about what the entire world would be going through with these riots, which perhaps are not the exact same thing, but got pretty close, where people were just smashing things and going into very wealthy places and pulling out stuff and burning things down. I mean, you know, he's a genius for coming up with this concept, but yeah, it's terrifying to see that both of those films are really popular topics, and make a great film to begin with, and a great conversation starter. And it's really very interesting, Robert.
No,
really
I do too. I agree. Like, I'm from Seattle, and the place where they built the Chaz, whatever the hell they called it. I'm like, I couldn't help but think, wow. So your philosophy is to go into the middle of a city that has, well, decades of infrastructure and money that was taxpayer money. You're going into this place where people have paid to live there, and they work there, and they've committed their lives, and you're just going to go in there and flippantly take over, and not, are you going to add something? Are you going to offer a philosophy that, you know, one of the things I think the thing that the moment in my life that I remember the most as being in terms of the antithesis of everything I believe in, was 9/11. And I have to say that, so my first DVD special edition, my first special features that I ever had to deliver, had to be delivered on 9/11. So it was The Usual Suspects. And Dave Parker and I and Carrie David had worked making these documentaries about the making of The Usual Suspects. We had all the suspects and Kevin Spacey, and we made these documentaries. And I had to deliver them on 9/11, literally that day. So I had stayed up all night, and what I was doing was, we finished everything in the computer, in the Avid, but we had to lay back to tape, to digibeta, and deliver the tapes. So we had to deliver both texted and text less tape. So we had credits, and then we had to deliver without credits. So if they wanted to put it out in foreign countries, they could put their own language credits on there. So that's what you had to deliver. I had to deliver 3 copies, and I think it was like 2 hours, 3 copies of texted and three copies of non-texted. So I had to sit there, and then I would go to sleep. I'd throw in a tape. It would lay back for 2 hours. I'd get up. I'd replace the tape and do that. So I was there for 24 hours. And when I woke up in the morning, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. And outside my window, there was a Circuit City that they were remodeling. And the workers were there. And, there's banks of TVs that were playing. And I walk out there, and these guys are having their morning coffee. Starbucks was right below us. We were in a mall. And these guys are transfixed on the TV. And I'm like, what's going on, man? And they're like, something hit the World Trade Center. And I'm like, wait, what? And because nobody knew. Like, nobody actually saw the first plane. I mean, that one French documentary crew, whatever. But at the time, they didn't know what happened. And I was watching them. I'm like, it was so, first of all, I had been on the top of the World Trade Center. The first time I ever went to New York, my grandmother was like, you've never been, I'm from New York. You've never been to New York? And she sent my sister and I in 1990. I went, it was great. She gave us a shit ton of money and put us up in a great hotel in 54th Street in the middle of Lincoln Center, whatever. And it was awesome. And we went to Broadway shows and had the best time. Well, we were tourists, and I'm like, I got to go to the top of the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center was fucking huge. I mean, when you stood in that courtyard, I'm like, I had never seen, because I'd never been to New York. I'd been to Seattle, and I'd been to L.A. and Hawaii, but I'd never been to New York. I didn't know, like, even seeing the New York skyline from a distance, and you see it in movies, you just don't know until you stand there. And when I was standing in the courtyard for the World Trade Center, I'm like, this is huge. Like, it's huge. The courtyard was huge. The globe that was in the courtyard, I mean, this is huge. And, of course, I'm like, I got to go to the top. We got to go to the top. And I have pictures of my sister and I on the top of one of the towers of the World Trade Center. And what was interesting to me was one of the reasons I wanted to go, and I wanted to go my whole life, was because of King Kong. And King Kong, I'll bring you on. Pat, you're still upside down. I just want you to know. King Kong, this was the artwork for King Kong. And it had King Kong straddling the Twin Towers. And this, by the way, this didn't happen. The movie in King Kong's not that big. But I was like, when I went to... Yeah, that's better. Oh, no, you're still upside down. I don't know why. Now you're better there. But I'll bring you on shortly. Hang on. So anyway... we were on the roof of the Twin Towers. We went to the windows of the world, that I could not believe how big those buildings were. They were huge. Yeah. And so when I saw this gaping hole in the side of one of the towers and smoke coming out, I'm like, oh my God. First of all, it never occurred to me it would fall down. But I was watching, we were all watching and talking. I went and got coffee, and I'm watching this, and I was watching live when because by this time cameras were on the building, and we watched an airliner, and I built so many models of airliners. I knew it was an airliner. An airliner flew right into the other tower. And at that moment in my life, I had never actually been scared the way I was scared then, because I realized at that moment, this was an attack. This was a coordinated, planned attack. And somebody did this on purpose. So there were now 2 planes, and you had both twin. And I wondered, if they could do that, they could do anything. And of course, and I'm in LA, and of course, and I at the same time, I'm still like, I have to deliver the Usual Suspects documentaries to MGM Home Video. So they're laying back, and they were due by 10 a.m. And now it's like, I think my time, it was like, I don't know, maybe it was 7. I don't know when the second plane hit. Maybe it was, I'm standing there, so I have to deliver this big job that has been given to me. And at the same time, I just watched a plane, something that, the only time I'd ever seen that is the old 1976 movie, The Medusa Touch, with Richard Burton, where a plane crashes into a building. And it was something that you're not supposed to, it was completely incongruous. Like, this doesn't happen, especially in New York City. And it wasn't like a Cessna. It was a fucking plane. And here's the funny thing. We all know what happened on 9/11. But the thing that freaked me out overall mostly was that no one offered an alternative point of view. You know, the Twin Towers came down, and the Twin Towers and those planes represented to me the pinnacle of all of human endeavor. We came down from the trees, and we developed mathematics and physics and science and materials, and we flew. And those Twin Towers were in the arguably the greatest city in the world, and they were so huge, and they all represented human achievement. Now, these motherfuckers have grievances against the United States. Absolutely they do. And I tried to look at that from that perspective, but wait, hang on one second. Yeah, better. You look good. I'll put you on now. But they didn't offer an alternative. Like, my whole thing is, like, if you have a grievance, I understand. If you have a problem and you think that our attitudes or our imperialism or whatever, the fact that we're stronger than you and we've been exploiting your people for as long as we have, and we have been, you have legitimate grievances. But if you're going to come in to one of the great cities in the world that represents the pinnacle of human achievement and blow some shit up and not offer an alternative, not give us something else. Okay, we understand you don't like us. You want to burn down our cities. But what is the alternative? What are you going to offer us? Are you going to offer us anything? Are you going to give us anything that we can believe in? Because I understand we're not perfect, and we've certainly done things that we're not proud of. But you've blown up these buildings that represent thousands of years of progress. And what is your alternative? Please, give me an answer. Give me something, anything. Hang on, wait, Pat, let me put you in. I'm going to put you in the show. You are not in the show yet. I'm going to put you in, coach. Oh, no, you're good. You're good. I'm going to put you in. Let me just put you down. And by the way, I don't mean to get all weird and political now. I'm just saying that it goes back to something like The New Order and the movie The New Order, and the idea that and what we're seeing in this country is like, hey, let's just go burn down the status quo. That's fine. I understand revolution's revolution. But what are you going to replace it with? And,
right.
and have you thought out, have you given us, by the way, this is Pat Finch, everyone. Welcome, Pat Finch. Pat, are you fucking feeling metal tonight, man?
I'm metal, and luckily, can I tell you something about this conversation?
Uh-oh.
You're looking at a student who has taken classes in counterterrorism.
Oh, wait, there you go. Yeah, put it in the middle. No, put it in the middle. That was good. Yeah. Scooch it over. Okay.
Like that. There we go.
There you go.
Ah, there you are.
And also, I've taken a class on, there's a book I have upstairs. I took a class called Why Muslims Rebel, and it was done through our George Mason University's Islamic Center. So we actually have a madrasa at George Mason University because there is a Muslim population there, and many of my friends are Muslim.
But I would say that terrorists, I mean, look at domestic terrorism, Timothy McVeigh blowing up the building in Oklahoma. It's terrorism is not the IRA, I mean, all that. Terrorism is not, in this particular case, yes, but there has been terrorism throughout human history. And I think you can't ever just say it's one group of people, because it's not. It's all.
It isn't. And there's an interesting lecture I took, and I had to write papers on this. But basically, the people have looked. You can look at terrorism all the way back to the medieval era of Guy Fawkes. We did this massive.
Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot.
Gunpowder treason plot, yes. And my professor in that class, his name is Professor Suleiman Uzun, and he's actually testified in Congress in regards to counterterrorism and counterterrorism events. And we were given this massive lecture on the difference between what is terrorism, what is branded a terrorist, who is a terrorist, etc. And we were talking about the rise of domestic terrorism. So we were talking about the rise of the far right. We were talking about the rise, and actually, believe it or not, far right terrorism is actually increasing, whereas far left terrorism is actually decreasing. Believe it or
Until 2020.
not. That is true.
Until 2020.
But yeah, but it's interesting because me personally, because I was in Europe and I took classes on nationalism and nationalist politics.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I loved your story about being in Europe and what you were studying and your experience there.
yeah, and the thing is too, like I studied in Hungary, Budapest, Hungary, which is the most right wing run by the most right wing nationalist government within the European Union.
Also, they've been
So,
devastated by COVID more than any other European nation.
yes, and it's interesting
Why do you
because
think that is? I just as an
well,
aside.
well, the funny
Why is Hungary so why has COVID hit them so hard?
Well, the funny thing is I was there when the lockdown started in Hungary,
Wow.
and they actually what happened was so Hungary, the government, Viktor Orban did quickly shut everything down. So the only stuff when I was there was like last week. Basically, what happened was Viktor Orban, the prime minister, ordered everything shut down, and I was in my apartment, and I was living in my apartment and taking classes online for like a week or two. And then it got to a point where the university was calling our director, and he was telling us that we were to go back overseas, back to
Really?
America. Yes, and it was on May. It was like a few days, and that day I was so sad and depressed actually,
Wow.
because I had all these plans to do. Like I had plans to go to Transylvania because I had
Six five
work.
thousand.
Yes, 65,000. Because at my work, I had an internship at the National Bureau on Hungarians Abroad, MPKI, and my
Yeah.
boss did research on the Hungarian community in Transylvania, as well as in South America. In fact, he spoke fluent Spanish. He lived in Argentina for a while. And I had plans to go to Transylvania and Germany, and I never did. And I was this sad day, so I just was like, I was sad, and so I ran out. And that was the day I bought that Polinka I showed you. I drank last time on the show. And also, I traveled to and took final photos of. So in Hungary, I visited what is known as one of the last surviving structures from the Ottoman period, because Hungary was under control of the Ottoman Empire, and by the Muslims. And the story goes that when the Ottomans conquered Hungary, a Sufi Muslim Baktashi monk by the name of Gulbaba died in 1450s. I forget when. Died right after, during the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, right when they conquered the city. He died immediately when the first prayers, Friday prayers happened, and they had nowhere to bury him. So a few years later, they built this tomb for him, and the tomb is one of the only few surviving structures from the Ottoman Empire, from the Ottoman period, in the entire city. And I visited that place again, and I took several beautiful pictures of it, and it was, and I had this sort of, and it felt like, and it was there standing there, and I felt like I was saying goodbye to an old friend in a way. It was kind of symbolic, and then that day I decided to accept my reality, and I quickly bought the stuff I can. I got a good deal on a leather jacket that was normally $800. I got it for $200 because the salesman was Turkish, and I spoke to him in Turkish. He's like, "Oh, he knows my friend," and that's kind of what happened. So,
well, it's interesting that the 1400s were a time when Islam was transformed. I mean, Islam was the height of scientific power and mathematics and all that. But the 1400s, when the imams took over and it became much more fundamentalists, it irrevocably changed Islam. I mean, Islam was leading; they were the forefront of. I mean, they basically created algebra.
Yes, and in fact, the thing is, the reality was that period you're mentioning, that didn't happen. The radicalists you're referring to, because I took some history classes and I took theology classes, by the way. What happened was during that period, that didn't occur until really the radical Muslims that we know of today really didn't occur until the 1700s, actually. So the 1700s, during the Ottoman Empire was decreasing. It was during the period of European colonialism.
Sure.
So, you had European powers were colonizing North Africa, the Middle East for the next 100 years or so. And, for example, I did a project on nationalism and minority rights, and we were talking about the minority rights. I did a project on the minority rights in, for example, the Berbers, the Berbers. And I was talking about, the Berbers basically, you had these two separate, you had these two separate political philosophies during in the nation state building for the country of Algeria during this period. And the Algerians wanted to basically, you had the Arab Algerians and then you have the Berber Algerians. And the Berber Algerians wanted what we would consider like a multi-ethnic, poly-ethnic vocational state, similar to what France was. And the Arabs wanted a completely different state. They wanted an Arab nationalist state, and the Arab side won. And then and it's very interesting and all that. But what are you going to add, Rob?
Well, I was going to ask you, Pat. I mean, now we're getting into I don't want to get into some, historical thing. Because, dude, we still be fucking metal, man. We gotta get people to talk. And I would ask you this. Go ahead.
I have something to say about
By
this.
the way, can I just say your lipstick is delightful.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. Thank you.
I just have to notice,
Thank you. And I'm going to make it short because I don't want to, dominate it too much with this heavy topic. But since it's related to the films that we're talking about.
I mean, New Order. That all of this refers back to the film, and otherwise,
yes.
I mean, it's a movie I've really wanted to see that I've been tracking. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen New Order. I've seen Roma, but I haven't seen New Order, so I'm kind of expecting just the opposite. Because
I've been dying to see this movie for like a year since I first heard about it.
There was no backlash for Roma. There was no backlash. That film was praised, and it had a similar theme. The other thing I was going to say is I was in New York when 9/11 happened.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's something that I wish I could forget, but I can't. And, we just had to watch all the horror of it. And I really don't even want to relive it. But what I can say is that, it changed everything. And thousands of innocent people died. It's not a hoax. I've seen people, get online and say that it never happened. No, it really did happen. But the main focus of this was that after 9/11 happened, there was a focus by the United States to find out exactly what was the driving force behind individuals who would do such a heinous crime. And I've heard many different theories behind it. And there have been many studies behind this trying to understand the mind of terrorist activities, both domestic and foreign. What I can say is that once an individual gets an idea in their mind, just like in just like in New Order, once these individuals get this idea in their mind, it's very difficult to change their opinion. And this is the motivating factor behind what pushes them to, or one of the motivating factors that pushes them into these heinous acts. There was nothing that you could have ever told anybody in that movie, New Order, to stop and release these individuals. There's no way you were going to get them to, and I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say there's no real way that you could really convince them to stop these violent acts of what was going on. And I believe that was the case when we had the riots in the United States and worldwide as well. I don't think there would have been anything that you could have told anyone who was rioting and destroying property and ultimately, doing all other sorts of stuff like that, there was nothing you could convince them to put, the bricks down. You couldn't talk them out of it. And I think that this film makes a good point of addressing films like this are so important because I think that it's important to see situations where we're going to have to deal with things like this, where people may make mistakes. It's a mistake. What they're doing is a mistake, but we have to be able to acknowledge and see these mistakes that they're making and figure out how we're going to respond afterwards. Because what you do, the next thing that you do after that is critical in determining, like the safety of others, what happens next, quality of life, whether the nightmares will continue. So, I think it's really interesting to kind of look at that aspect. And I think that New Order is probably doing that or presents the question, once this has happened to you, how is it going to change you? What happens to that family? Happiest day of their life. What happens on the happiest day of your life when the worst thing can happen to you? Like your happiest day of your life turns into the worst day of your life.
No, and I think that like this week, something that happened this week in San Jose, Northern California, Central California, we had this shooting at this rail yard. And we've had a mass shooting like almost every day for the last 2 weeks. But in this rail yard, a former disgruntled employee shows up and targeted people he didn't like and killed a lot of people and then killed himself. And what I find so interesting is, why is this happening in America? And guns are just a tool. It's not guns' fault. There's something going on in our country right now.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Excuse me, I was going to add what you and was saying. Basically,
you are sideways. I just want you to know.
I wish you would turn your head
sideways again.
You're turned towards Robert. Turn it, if you're going to be sideways, have it turned towards me.
There you go. That's good. There you go.
Yeah,
all right, that's okay too.
It's an iPad, so I was going to add that, people, the difference between, for example, my experience living overseas and the experience of living here is the difference is people in the United States, I feel we are very self-centered, I've noticed. And also I'd say, too, the problem is, too, we have this view of, I would say, is the differences too. I think, a lot of what we're seeing, whether I think it's related to opium addiction, it's related to a lot of social issues and social ills in our country and our society, is when people are desperate, either due to economic issues or due to political issues. And usually when people are not happy or when people are in despair, they usually lead towards the polar extremes, whether it be left wing or right wing.
Yeah, I don't think they usually lean towards polar extremes when they're unhappy. I think that that's not true. But I do think, Pat, that people are upset and they're responding to grievances that are both real and grievances that are both imagined.
Yes, I agree with that. But I think that people are desperate. When people are desperate, they will. And also, I think in the United States, we have a much easier time accessing weapons. We have an easier time accessing weapons. We have an easier time accessing things.
But we also, I mean, the rest of the world doesn't do this. The rest of the world does not go in. Yes, we have an easier time accessing weapons, but we're a very prosperous, very wealthy nation. We have, and I always joke, I'm like, Americans have been human beings less than the rest of the world. The rest of the world's thousands of years old. We're only we're 500 years, maybe five. We're not quite 500 years old yet.
Americans.
Well, yeah, but I mean, jokingly, like our civilization
is relatively young.
Young, and we're psychopaths. America itself is psychotic. We are a crazy, weird, strange country, and it's never been more apparent to me other than the last and I'm not going to say it's when Trump was elected, but whether you like Trump or not, if you were picking the president of the United States and you looked at people's resumes, their qualifications, I mean. It's like Donald Trump wouldn't be in the top 10 of the people you would and I'm convinced that if he wasn't on reality television, I mean, in the 80s, I read The Art of the Deal. When that book came out, I bought that book and read it. And Donald Trump was somebody I thought was this big, amazing guy in the 80s, and then of course, Atlantic
Well,
City.
you didn't live in New York. That's why you didn't know more about it.
Yeah, I did, but yes, that's and it's so interesting that now Mitch McConnell, and we talk about the Republicans and all that. I understand the anger. I mean, I understand people going, let's burn it all down and start over from scratch. My only problem is the people that want to burn it all down have no idea what to do once we're living in ashes. They're not going to be able to build anything else up. And I look, I love the revolution. Bring it on. But I need somebody that when the revolution is over, when we're all standing in the smoldering ruins, who's going to get ready and get their hands dirty and let's start building a new civilization. None of these people.
They don't have any of the skills or the knowledge to do it. Pat, exactly. I want you to talk just a little more briefly about what you were saying about in regards to empathy, specifically about looking at things from a different point of view, let's say outside of, let's say, the United States, or let's say even the Americas. I just want you to tell us a little bit more about what you found out, as you were saying before, just a little bit more.
Oh, about me, what I said earlier?
Yeah, about views from other countries versus the United States.
So I was going to add, for example, in Hungary, it's a much more insular conservative society. And for example, a lot of people in Hungary are desperate and they just came out of communism. So their perspective on life is much different. Because of communism's now gone, they basically are like, okay, we're now in a free market capitalist society. How do we manage this? How do we do X, Y, Z? And part of it is you'll have a good chunk of people who, for example, in Hungary, who have been left behind because they cannot adapt to to capitalism. They can't adapt to capitalism. There is a really good movie I saw. I'm not sure if any of you have seen Goodbye Lenin.
I have. Yeah,
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a very good movie with Daniel Bruler. And for the audience not knowing, it's about, it's a satirical comedy about a East German family. And what happened is the mother finds out her son was protesting against the East German communist government. And she faints and is in a coma. She wakes up, and guess what? She gets out of her coma and wakes up right after the wall came down. And so her son has to create this illusion that the communist government is still going strong, that German reunification has not happened yet.
Right.
So, and that's the whole idea of the film. Now, and the reason why I love that movie and Daniel Bruler's character is he wanted capitalism. He wanted freedom. But at the end of the day, as soon as he got it, he couldn't adapt. And the fact, because he couldn't adapt, he got frustrated. He got frustrated with the system. He got frustrated with, why is this not happening? Why is XYZ not happening? How come you cannot take the money that I saved up in East German marks and put it into West German marks? It's like, well, the deadline's passed, so we're sorry, you could not do that. And he gets all frustrated, and in East Germany, not just in East Germany, but in Hungary and most of the former communist Europe, Eastern Europe, it's that same mindset. It's that same mindset.
I have to say, I've told this story before on the show. When I was in Bulgaria in 2008, when I was producing Hills Run Red that Dave Parker was directing, it was a former Soviet satellite state. And when we landed at their new airport, when I was a kid, I built model airplanes of every Soviet fighter plane.
I have a MiG-21 model.
So when we landed at the airport, on the other side of the airport, there was all of these mothballed Russian fighter planes. And I'm like, oh my God. And I figured, I'm producing this movie. I was like, man, can I go over there? And they're like, no, you can't go over there. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. I mean, there was there was a fox bat over there. I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't believe. And so, but one of the things that was amazing was you would see a Lamborghini driving next to a horse-drawn cart where Romani people were there. And one of the things, and I've told this story before, I was staying at this hotel, the Kempinski, and it was Mutra, which is the mafia. The piano bar at the hotel was run by the mafia. And the guy, Yuri, he was a classical American. If you saw him, you couldn't have got a better gangster out of Central Casting. And he didn't speak any English, and all he did was watch. He'd sat at the corner of the piano bar all night long and watched downloaded, pirated. He watched The Sopranos, he watched Goodfellas, he watched Godfather, and he and I became friends. And I brought him because I was like, and the girl that ran the bar was this unbelievably beautiful girl. And I said to her once, I said, and I would take them, her and her boyfriend, I would take out to the cast party and stuff. And I asked her one night, I said, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to stay here and work at this? The piano bar is basically a brothel, but it was in the hotel, but it was a bar. And I said, you don't want to work here. I mean, you're really good at what you do. And she goes, well, my boyfriend and I want to open a cafe. And I go, oh my God, that's a great idea. You guys would be great running a cafe. I love them. I go, you'd be a great hostess. And she looked at me like I was insane. She goes, no one in Bulgaria would ever say that I could do this. I can't. And it was like, she can't have a dream. Right. And I was like, and I'm looking at her going, like, I'm watching the way she works. I mean, I was in that hotel for 3 months, and I'm like, I saw her every night. I'm like, you're really good at what you do. And they don't even know. Like you just said, the mindset, she can't even conceive of, like, in America, it doesn't matter where you are. If you think something up, it doesn't matter. Even you could be in the poorest of neighborhoods. You can think, like, I want to do this. Somebody in your neighborhood is going to be like, I'll help you.
Yeah.
Like, we have this mentality here that we can do anything. You know what? I want to start a YouTube show called Midnight Metal, where I get to scream and yell as a middle-aged man, go, fuck yeah, dude. That was me a midnight fucking metal. Ah! And I'm like, somebody's going to show up. Somebody's going to show up. In Bulgaria, they don't believe that. Or they didn't at least 13 years ago.
Well, time has passed so much. Now, I want to add another thing for me was there was a night when I was roaming, I was walking around. One of my professors is a professor by name of Professor Gigel. And he is a Canadian, but he's of Hungarian ancestry, and he left Canada to go live in Hungary. And he speaks Hungarian, and he is a premier expert. He's professor at ELTA. He's one of the premier experts on Roma and Gypsy rights, civil rights issues. And we were talking, I was telling him, and he has a friend, and I think will be related to Midnight Metal because of you being a producer and director.
Fuck.
And I got to meet with him.
Don't forget, it's still Midnight Metal.
That's right.
We got to interview a friend of his who is actually a film producer and director by name of Jussi Vamosi. And he is a Roma Gypsy activist and film producer who's done a couple of films. He's produced a couple of films about the blight of the Roma and the Gypsies. And because he himself is a Gypsy. Yeah. And he...
it's even you saying that, you could get canceled.
Exactly. Now, he actually... I know that. And the thing is... And that's why I'm going to say Roma. But the thing is, in the United States, our understanding of the Roma is more of like a caricature, like Cher going, Gypsies, fans, and thieves, Cher.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Sorry, but it's not. Most Americans don't have that view of Gypsies or Romas. They know who they are, and it's not Cher's point of view. But what I was going to say is that the movie... does it's supposed to be in a dystopian future, and what happens in the film is that it seems like
you're talking about New Order.
Yes. It's in a dystopian future, so it's almost like the film is almost like a warning of what could come. But we have seen in real life, and kind of like what you were referring to, Pat, in regards to coups, like a coup happening. This is what you were talking about earlier, Rob. You know, people were comparing what happened at the Capitol to a possible coup. And, you know, the idea that you can use unrest, you know, people who are disenfranchised, who unfortunately are the focus of an unrest or an unrest act, whether it be a terrorist act, domestic or foreign, that at that point, at a critical point in a country where they can go ahead and do a coup and take over the country, is another thing that's addressed in the film.
Yeah. Well, hang on. I want to go back to something that you were saying and Pat said. I don't think that because I certainly didn't when I went to Bulgaria, the Romani people, the idea of gypsies, or we call them that, I was very unaware of. I don't think we in America do have an understanding of, because they're not part of our culture. We just don't have that. And so when I was there, I saw the incredible income inequality, and I saw the prejudice, and I heard people talking, and what, you know, it was such a strange thing to me, because I was completely going to a foreign. This is why I think every American should have a passport. I think we should have mandatory travel between when you're 18. You should be forced to travel around the world. Gosh, what a hardship to travel around the world for 2 years. Because I do think, like, I mean, going to Bulgaria, I'd never been to a Soviet satellite state. I'd never, and it was so different. But I didn't understand specifically that Romani, Gypsy. Yeah. I didn't understand any of that. And when I went there
was a certain level of ignorance about it. But I don't think you thought that they were like the song from Cher.
No.
I just
wanted to clarify that.
Came off my head.
Yeah,
okay,
no
worries. I just, you know.
No, not at all. But it was interesting when you're watching a Lamborghini drive down the street next to a horse-drawn cart. I mean, it was, the juxtaposition was, I mean, we think we know things in this country. Americans only know things about America. I mean, all of our grievances, our entire quote-unquote woke culture is so it's so navel-gazing and ridiculous. It's not based on anything outside of the borders of this country.
But what will the backlash of this film be, Pat? What will the backlash of this film be? The way that things are going in this country right now, with the woke idea, what do you think they're going to say about a film like this?
Well, that's going to be very interesting.
I am of that generation. I am 23. I am of the woke generation you speak of. In fact, I am a member of the Young Democrats. And all I can say is this. Basically, in my opinion, I think a lot of young people, I'm sorry, I'm standing up because I wanted to show all the stickers I have on my college. See, I was even a part of Mason radio for a bit. But what I was going to add is I think a lot of young people, the problem with a lot of young people, and this is what I personally experience and it's frustrating, is we in the United States, a lot of young people they rather stay within their own social cliques. And the reason being is they have not grown because they have become obsessed at a young age about social media.
Oh.
And a friend of mine, in fact, for me, I did not start social media, and this is why I wanted to talk to you. I can't. Sorry,
You can say RM as well.
RM, thank you, Rob.
But without the B.
But what I was going to add is a lot of young people started social media at a young age. I had friends in middle school that had Facebook accounts that young. I did not start social media and this stuff until I got out of high school. And as a result, my social development was I developed more socially and actively than a lot of my peers. And I prefer face-to-face conversations with people.
Me too.
I had this issue where I would go up to a girl and I would be flirting with a girl and she would be like, what? Because she's obsessed with her phone. She's on her phone and what? I had a case when I was in Europe. I was in a class with all a group of Americans. I said something and these two girls would basically not like me the entire time. They called because I was the only dude in the entire group, and these two would basically just would be like, "Oh, you're a toxic male."
Oh my God. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That'd be the reason for me to go
Yeah.
near you, because you're the only guy. So I don't know. I have the complete opposite reaction.
But here's the thing. Isn't it quick? Here's what I don't get. Why is everyone so quick to want to label people? Like, and here's the thing that I think is even weirder. When someone brands you, calls you a toxic male, they are putting themselves in a position where they feel they are worthy to pass judgment on another person. Where does that come from? Where I don't even know where that mindset. I mean, my whole thing is, like, my entire philosophy of life is I don't know who you are, and I would never presume to know who you are. And when I say, like, my whole channel, my overreaching philosophy is that every person that I meet is someone that I don't know. Yes. And I am not qualified to judge you, nor would I. All I can do is meeting somebody new is tell me who you are. And
Yes.
and we now live in a world where everybody feels they're the fucking Oracle of Delphi, and they're going to pass judgment. When did we live in a society where every single individual thinks that they're judge, jury, and executioner, that they know enough that they can look at somebody and my God, put them in a fucking box? Like, you're this person, you're a toxic male. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? You know, what does that mean? Like, you're a toxic male. I'm like, baby, I will rip your underwear off my teeth and take you places you've never been. Does that make me toxic?
Because I counter their narrative.
It makes you very skilled.
Well, but no. You have to find out. I mean, here's the thing. Don't take my word for it. I'm like, what happened to the world where you need to back up what you're saying with action and understanding? And
social media, it's because of texting. Because the problem is, I could post something on Instagram, or I can post something on YouTube. I can post something, and the problem is, if I'm sending a message to someone, a personal friend of mine, if I were to send a message to my friend Eric or something on like a public forum like Twitter or something, people are going to look at that and they're going to misinterpret it because of the context, because there is no context.
Yeah.
I talked.
But that means people are fucking dumb.
What
happened?
The problem is, they feel like they have to put something. It has to be them because of social media itself.
Right.
Because social media provides a platform.
By the way, I'm just zipping off the frame. I'm just grabbing another bottle of water. I'll be right back.
But Pat, I'm
hearing
wondering.
You.
Oh, thank you, Robert.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering if it's also peer pressure. And I know that it seems weird. Usually peer pressure is when people are in a group together in person. But I'm seeing that there's a lot of times where, you know, people feel compelled to respond to things or to say certain things that I'm guessing really isn't in their, you know, their deepest and desire to say. I can tell you personally that I hate anybody calling somebody toxic. You know, just be honest and say you don't agree with them. Just do that and go on with the day. But don't go ahead and try and, you know, say that put someone in a category. I don't believe in that sort of stuff. So I think it's very detrimental.
I think part of it is for people, it's easy to do that. Because I was reading, I know Rob has read Peterson, but have you heard of Slavoj Žižek?
No.
So Peterson did a debate with Slavoj Žižek, and Slavoj Žižek he's like considered one of the last great leftist philosophers, basically. He's like the last true leftist philosopher, and he actually debated and is friends with Jordan Peterson, ironically. And they had this debate, and Slavoj Žižek was talking about and he wrote a number of books, and what he was saying was that you have this issue where he sees it as this need to maintain power. He sees it as the elite that people are taking. It has to do with the absolute truth, or what he refers to as universality, but it's the absolute truth. It's basically people wanting to control a narrative because in order to maintain power, or in order to maintain their position in life, because.
And it's the only thing that they have power over is because
Exactly.
if they didn't have it, no one would be listening to just the ordinary person. If they can go ahead and put it, they can't put pen to paper, but they can put it online and it's there forever. So they use that as a false sense of authority, a false sense of knowledge, and a false sense of power.
Exactly. It creates a false sense and creates a false narrative. And the problem is, the reality is, I also see it as, like, for example, YouTube, this medium we're on YouTube, for example. It has created an opportunity for many people, including us, to talk with each other.
Fuck yeah, dude! Come on, fucking Midnight Metal! Ah!
Whereas 30 years ago, it would have been, we had to have been friends, we had to have been on like a TV station, or we had to know someone on the radio or TV or something, back like 20, 30 years ago. So as a result, we on YouTube, this platform has created this issue where we have everything from left-leaning news sites like Kyle Kalinske and Cenk Uygur and Young Turks to right-leaning sites.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And thank you. And right-leaning websites like the Daily Wire and Crowder.
And we already knew that specific news organizations had their own biases. But a little while ago, when I say a little while ago, I don't know how many years it is. There used to be this FCC rule that said if you were a news organization or a broadcaster, that if you were presenting, a point of view, that you had to present both sides. So a lot of times you would listen to news reports and they would say, well, people are saying it's unfair, but then, the council is saying they're doing everything they can. And, they were forced to say what the other side was. It was part of what was a requirement. And that was, once that went away, we started to have organizations that had, not only were they more biased, but they became somewhat more extreme because they didn't have to tell the other side of the argument. And even every famous person who learns how to debate always has to go ahead and be able to defend against the opposing side. Once you go ahead and remove the need to even acknowledge that the other side exists, it's no longer a debate.
And the problem is, too, with how the algorithm on YouTube and on Google works is basically if you Google, like, for example, if I were to watch, Crowder video, next thing I get start recommending more and more right-wing or right-leaning stuff. If I were to watch a lot of Young Turks videos, I get recommended Young Turks and left-leaning stuff. And that's just byproduct, and it only reinforces the already existing biases that us as humans have.
I have to say that I find that, like, I like to watch all kinds of videos. I've watched Crowder videos. I watch Young Turks.
Robert.
I watch I watch all I watch all kinds of videos. What I cannot stand is I fucking hate my recommendations when I watch one video, then all of my recommendations change. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, one of the things that I like to do is zip around and look at, like, I love to look at diametrically opposing points of view.
Yes.
Right away. Like, I'll watch a Ben Shapiro video, and then I'll watch a Brett Weinstein video, and then I'll watch a Joe Rogan video, or a whatever. I'm just jumping around, and then the algorithms are trying to figure out what I want.
Right.
And I wish I could tell the algorithms, like, look, what I want is to listen to everyone. There's no algorithm that says, boy, this person wants to have a diverse experience.
No.
And I the fact that I'm I literally on a daily basis, I'm fighting my own YouTube algorithms to let me watch things that I want to watch, because everybody wants to pigeonhole you. And I'm like, look, man, you're not going to bamboozle me. And we look at a movie like The New Order. Like I've been watching subversive cinema my entire life, and like you name it, I've seen it. I mean, look, I'm not going to say I've gone into the dark web and watched snuff videos like Hostile. Or I haven't done that. But my whole raison d'etre, the whole idea of what I want from life or what I want from this is I want humanity to progress into a Star Trek utopian future. That's what I want. That's what I believe in, and what I see. I never thought that I would be growing into a civilization that has become less and less mature. America has become more immature than I've ever seen it before. Everyone is a petulant 7th grader. Like we watch now, like the first of all, if there's an insurrection, call it what you want, whatever happened on January 6th, why wouldn't you want to investigate it to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Because they're afraid of votes.
Oh, I understand. I don't care why anyone's afraid of it. I get all that. But the fact is, there's a problem that needs to be solved. We as Americans are no longer problem solvers. We are people. And look, I come from Hollywood. Hollywood elites. Do you know what Hollywood is really good at doing? Pardon me. Let me say Hollywood productions are good at doing. People that are actually the people that are actually making the movies, not the people that are sitting, not the people that won't take my phone calls and the people that reschedule meetings, not those people. But when I get onto a set or I have to cut a movie or make something, which most of the people I deal with have never done, people, it's so funny. I get judged by a movie that I've made. Tango Shalom is what it is.
It's a wonderful film.
Well, thank you. But it's like that we have two whatever it is. It's a movie that I made, but people look at it and go, well, it wasn't very expensive. Like, no, it was less than $1 million, man. It was shot. It was a family affair and all, whatever. But we made it. It got finished. You have never done shit. You don't even know what it's like to have to schedule one day of shooting a film, and yet I'm waiting on you. I'm waiting on you. My life is waiting on you. I mean, and it's like I've been dealing with somebody that I've had 2 meetings scheduled with this person about a new project. They've confirmed the night before, an hour before our meeting, and by the way, happens every day. I've had them moved an hour before. Like, I'm a filmmaker that I've got a show on Netflix that I worked on. I've got a movie that's going to Buenos Aires. It's going to Madrid. And yet somebody in this town who's never done what I've done is making me wait on them. And it's like,
oh my God.
But also, there's also situations where you have a whole crew where you're working, and you think when you arrive there that this person is going to be the director, this one's going to be whatever position, and when you get there, there's one person who's actually doing all the stuff, but the other guy is getting credit for it. I see that all the time. Yeah, no, it's
unbelievable. And look, I accepted that in Hollywood. I mean, I know what that's like. I haven't been dealing with that for a long time until now. I've been dealing with that, but this is the problem I feel with our society. Our society is not capable of actually doing, like, every individual, like, to me, you should know how to have, like, if you drive a car, you should know how to change a tire. You shouldn't have to call. You should have called AAA. You should have a
driver's license.
Yeah, look, like, I mean, I've changed tires because I learned how to change a tire. I've changed tires on the 405 and the 101 freeway, not for cars I was even driving. I can change a tire in 5 minutes. In the most arduous, difficult experience, we should all know these things. Our society does not know how to function on a daily basis. Pat, and America is going to get destroyed because of it.
Pat, do you drive?
Yes, I do drive.
Okay. I just wanted to ask that question because there are a lot of younger people nowadays who apparently are not getting their driver's licenses because I guess they feel that they don't have to get them, or it's not, a requirement. It's not really needed.
That is absolutely true.
Pat, what do you think about what they're saying about the younger? I'm not putting the spotlight on you necessarily. I'm saying, what do you think about what they were saying when Robert and I are talking about the fact that the younger generation is not having as much sex as previous generations?
Yeah, and I actually heard that conversation you did in the previous Midnight Metal, and I actually wanted to. And that's something I want to mention, is part of it is financial. It has to do with money, and it has to do with insecurities and fears. In my case, me trying to flirt with girls, it's harder because a lot of them rely heavily, a lot of young women, they're very concerned about their own careers. And when you have a toxic male, that comes up and flirts with them in person, they're like, oh, you're not what I want. I don't want to be with you. And also part of it's financial. Raising a child costs money. And a lot of young people, I have $80,000+ in student debt right now. And I'm very likely to graduate in December of this year.
But wait, can I interrupt you right here?
Yes.
You've already made excuses about look, here's the thing. Here's what I don't understand. When you go to let's say you're going out, and a bar, you're hanging out, you're going to meet somebody, you're going to flirt with somebody, whatever. I don't think they're thinking about your student debt, or they're thinking about anything other than the fact that you're out having a good time. And I know that if you walk up to somebody, and you approach them in I'll give you here. I'll tell you a secret. Here was my surefire way to at least open a dialogue with a lovely lady I might meet out at a bar.
Oh, okay.
Here's my secret. Here I'll tell you my secret sauce. And by the way, it worked every single time. So here's what it was. I would have sidled up to a bar, talking to the bartender, whatever, nursing a drink. Inevitably, some girl would come up and be next to me, somebody I would like to have talked to. She's up there trying to and some other guy who is not bringing his finesse game to the experience, he would come up and be like, hey, it's so good to meet you, or like, hi there, how are you? Just monstrous douchebaggery.
Yes.
And I'm talking to the bartender, I'm nursing my drink, and I'm listening to all this. I'm taking it all in. I'm listening to the whole thing. And invariably, this guy, would say something, some kind of outlandish thing, or just something dumb. But that girl would have keyed off on. She would have something that bothered her. And I'm just listening. That guy goes away, doesn't work. I still drink, don't pay any attention. Then I kind of turn and throw off an aside. And I would say something to the effect of, I would acknowledge the thing that she most objected to. And I would say something like, if only he understood this, right? And then go back and continue drinking. And then she would know that I was listening and I was paying attention. And that I understood that whatever she objected to, I got why she didn't, or why she objected to whatever he said. I acknowledged that I had heard her, I agreed with her, and I listened to her. Yeah. And I threw that out, and it had to be done cool. I'm not saying I'm the coolest motherfucker in the world. I'm just saying this is my approach. And then I would go back, and I would not wait for a response, because that puts pressure on her. I go back and I drink my drink. And if she turns and has something back to say to me, then I'm not even looking at her. I'm not waiting are you going to acknowledge my No, man, you go back to your drink, because you don't care if she comes, stays, lays, or prays. It's all good. You got to be cool. And if she comes back and says, if she gives you anything, if she says anything back to you, that means she understands that you paid attention to her more than the douchebag that walked up. And that's where you begin a conversation.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, man. You begin a conversation. You might not have it go anywhere, but you've given her the power. You have given her, you've acknowledged she's already had power over you because you're attracted to her. But what you got to do is you can't use that. You can't use that. Girls you're attracted to all girls. Everyone knows that. Guys are so the idea is what you have to do is you have to give her something that allows her to come to you because you've given her a little bit of something where she can either trust you or understand you've seen her. That's the way to do it.
It's Robert Meyer Burnett's Late Night Lessons on Love.
There you go, man. I mean, and the way to do it is you need to tell a woman, or if you're in a gay bar, that's a whole different thing. But if
it's a whole different, Robert.
I mean, it's much easier. But yes, you need to tell a woman somehow that you have something she wants, and what she wants is you to listen to her first and foremost, to see her. That's the beginning. And if you can't do that, because she already knows you're a douchebag, what you have to do is convince her you're not.
I see what your point. And can I add something? Because I wanted to add something because I saw you were on Midnight's Edge talking about James Bond franchise.
Fuck yeah, I was.
And
for 2.5 hours.
James Bond movies. I love the James Bond movies. In fact, because I'm on my iPad, I can do this. I have almost all the 50th anniversary collection.
Oh, dude, I have that box set. That box set rules.
It is awesome. I love.
It's so great.
Can I tell you? Because you recommended an idea for Amazon to do for a Spectre series.
Yes. And to do the Rise of Spectre. Yes.
Let me tell you something. You know, James Bond was a very popular first-person shooter video game franchise.
Dude, GoldenEye. Yeah. You probably weren't even born when GoldenEye came out.
I have an N64.
Then you have GoldenEye. GoldenEye is still to this day one of the greatest video games ever made. Yeah, okay, you know. And you know playing that game. And by the way, my friend Steve Melching was a wicked. He would kill you in a second. It was terrible.
GoldenEye all the time as a kid, all the time, because I have two older brothers who are like 10 to 12 years older than me, and so I inherited all the stuff from when they were a kid. So the N4 PS2. Now, have you heard of GoldenEye Rogue Agent?
I have that.
See, this is my idea.
It's not good. It's not good.
I liked it though. And at Christopher Lee, he came back.
I know.
As, Scaramanga.
Pat, what are your older brother's opinion on what we've been talking about? Have you had conversations with them about this topic?
About the
El Necron, I would never say to a girl, "Can I park my shuttlecraft in your shuttle bay?" No.
That's way too forward.
I would never say anything like that.
During a Trek convention.
Yeah, even that I wouldn't. I would say something more subtle. I'd be like, "Gosh, my never mind."
Yeah.
No. I've already given up my ghost. Thank God I'm happily in a relationship, and I'm not, as a middle-aged man. None of it's going to work anyway because the women I would meet would be middle-aged women, and they would have heard it all. They would see right through my ass. This only worked when I was like, in my 20s. I'm not talking about work. It doesn't work now. And by the way, I don't even know. I couldn't even like girls don't even get approached by other guys because they're on their phone. It's just unbelievable.
I get approached by guys.
So
yeah,
I have a story. I actually went up to. I would be at Starbucks, and I would be in a Starbucks, and I'd see a girl doing. For example, I saw this one girl, and she was on her laptop doing work. And I would ask, because this is during the day of era of online school, which I'm in. And so I would go up to her and be like, "Oh, what are you working on? See, I'm working for this thing from university, and are you university students?" She's like, "Oh, yes, yes." And then we would start this conversation about university work. But to answer MR's question, RM's question, is that my brother Robert, my eldest brother, he actually is engaged and is getting married next year. He met his fiance through a friend. So this is during the early days of Facebook. They actually met through a friend because her RN at university was actually friends with my brother's friend, and so my brother's friend kind of paired them together. My brother Michael, he actually had a girl. My other brother, he had a girlfriend, and the thing was, the reason why that didn't work out was because she was from India, and her parents had an issue with her dating a white guy.
Right. The whole caste.
Caste system, yeah. And
by the way, that's something that doesn't compute in American culture either.
Yes,
like America only understands what's in America. We don't
exactly
like you're talking. I have to tell you to speak to that. There was a girl that I went to school with, and I met her in junior high school. Her name was Sabika Jaddy, and she was fucking hilarious. I loved her. She was hilarious. I had no idea. I mean, she was Indian, but I'm living in Seattle. I had no idea she had to deal with her parents. She had an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, junior high school, I had no fucking clue. I'm like, wait, what? Like in Seattle, like, I'm an American. I don't need to know what. I had no idea. And I mean, she was Indian, and it like there's a lot more Indians in the world than there are Americans, and yet Americans know shit about India.
Yeah, and
why is that?
About can I go back to the Roma conversation?
Yeah.
I was coming up with Giuseppe Bonomosi. So he actually did a documentary. I had to see BBC documentary about the Roma, and it evolved into this the world of how basically the Roma are taken out of their family's custody because the families are poor, and they're sent into halfway houses. Okay. And they're owned by the state. And what happens is many of these young Roma girls, and this actually get sent through a life of prostitution. And that hit when I was watching that documentary. That hurt me real hard because a week earlier I was wandering around in the center of Budapest, and these two girls went up to me. This one girl's like, "Hi, how are you doing?" In perfect English, like, "Hi," because it shocked me. Because being an American, not hearing English that often, is like, oh, English. And next thing you know, she was soliciting me sex.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was so confused, and it shocked, and it was like, oh. And then I watched the documentary, and I got to interview the producer and director of the thing, Juicy. And it just was like, it was heartfelt to me because I'm like, oh my God, this personally happened to me. And believe it or not, in Hungary, they still have segregated schools.
Right. Yeah.
Roma.
Can you explain the type of segregation you're referring to, Pat?
So there was actually a court case in 20, and actually when I was there, it was one of the big political issues in Hungary. So basically, a group of Roma families sued the.
Is he having some technical difficulty?
No, I don't know. He just he disappeared. Hopefully,
I can't hear him anymore.
He's gone. He disappeared. It happened. You know what? I don't know if it's because I'm not using StreamYards or what.
Yeah.
So now it's you and I, unless anyone
Robert,
can pop in
out here.
No, so go on.
Well,
Pat comes back. Pat, come back. Nikki, come back. Where are you, Pat? I don't know. Anybody can jump on, by the way. I can only have, in my software, because I'm not using StreamYards, I can only have 2 people. Oh, wait. Yeah. Pat has come back. Pat's back.
You have this incredible weekend coming up with CK Smile tomorrow.
Yes.
And then
All right.
you also, one other thing I was going to say is that recently in the Eurovision contest, a group called Måneskin, I'm not even quite sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's the first time in a long time that a heavy metal band has won the Eurovision contest.
Right. Yes.
So I
We're
feel
go-
like it's making sort of like a comeback. And there was a big scandal at the Eurovision contest because I guess the United Kingdom didn't get any votes this year, but there's a lot of talk about this band and just a lot of buzz about it in the heavy metal community. And another thing that I was going to say is that Gene Simmons is offering a master class in Las Vegas. He does a one-on-one course with a special select group of people where he's going to teach you how to play bass and to learn how to write rock songs.
You know, can I add something
Yes.
about metal? So, believe it or not, I follow the German rap scene that was established in previous time. There's actually, I love the German rap scene.
I know you told us a lot. I take such first of all, like, so I probably do a show with Dieter Bastian from
Yes.
Saarbrücken, Deutschland.
Who I am going to for English, by the way, Robert.
Dieter, du bist hier.
Is he here? Is Dieter here?
Is here? I'm just asking because I don't have the chat open. So
first of all,
I was going to add.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to add. There's this popular. There's actually a Jewish German rapper. He was on the news a couple of years ago. His name was SpongeBob, and he's a Jewish German rapper. And what happens is he actually worked originally. He went by the name Santiago. He's back to being called Santiago now, but he basically had this career in working with this producer by the name of Kollega. And Kollega is German-Canadian rapper, weirdly enough. And Kollega and Farid Bang did a song, two big-name German rappers, they did a song. And it was controversial because in the song, and they ended up performing this for the ECO Awards, is the main German music awards. And the song won an award, but the problem is the song said, the guy sang, I have more definition than someone out from Auschwitz.
Yeah. You know what? Not something you should say.
Yes, not something you should say at all. And this pissed off SpongeBob so much they did a massive diss track on the two guys.
Right.
And he literally said to them, you don't know anything about the ghetto. Only my grandmother knows about the ghetto, not you guys, because his grandmother was a survivor and he was going after them. And he was pissed. You can tell because I watched the music video and I was listening to the lyrics. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is pissed. And especially it led to the two rappers. They ended up visiting Auschwitz. They made formal apologies and everything. And it was this massive scandal. And I remember, and I was reading in the German news now, is Santiago, he goes by Santiago now, he has actually met with Kollega and they've actually formally apologized now.
That's good.
So they're now friends.
Well,
so
that's unfortunate, Pat, to hear something that would come out like that an artist would push through something like that. And hopefully we won't see something like that ever again,
Yeah. Especially in Germany.
But it's good that you mentioned that it still does happen. But, let's just keep our fingers crossed that we don't see any more, artists pushing through things like that, because I don't think it's a good idea. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Listen, Pat,
Yes.
I'm gonna, it's great to see you again. I want to bring on more people because we've been talking for like an hour and a half or like an hour.
Yeah. And can I answer Um's question about the Roma segregation before the whole thing
Sure, absolutely.
happened? So I was going to add is they segregate them by basically they write down that the Roma kids have developmental issues, and they used it as an excuse to send them to alternative classes. And a lot of times these rooms are filled with Roma students, and as a result, they get disadvantaged care. And in Hungary, there's this belief that Roma people are stupid, that they're illiterate, etc. And as a result, they get terribly treated, and it's impossible for them to find work. And in the case where I'm referring to is they sued the Hungarian government. They won the case, but the Hungarian government refuses to give them money because in their view, they're like, well, the Roma are gypsies. They're going to gyp us. They're going to misuse the money. They're going to use it for something else, even though they actually need the money. So, and they refuse, and they still refuse, even though the court has claimed, no, you have to pay out. They have refused. So that's that whole court case, and that's how they segregate them. So,
okay. Well, Robert, I did also want to mention something about, you were talking about someone mentioning kindness, and I did also want to kind of, Robert, are you still there?
I'm still here. I was listening to you. Okay. So wait, hang on. I just want to say, Pat, I want to thank you for being here, and go to bed. Go to bed, and thanks for being here. Thanks. Pat. It was great to talk to you, and so that was Pat. Thank you for being here. So please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I did just want to talk about the idea of kindness, and we were talking about these films and some of the messages in the films, and just the overall impact. Hey, the chairman is here.
Yeah, Mr. Mao is here. The chairman. Can I bring the chairman in if we're going to talk about kindness?
Yeah, let's do that because, and I don't want to go too long on it, but I think that the films, and maybe the chairman can even comment on this, is that there's a lot of animosity in the films. While with New Order, the animosity is quite sudden. With Roma, as I was referring to earlier, there's underlying animosity in the difference of the classes, and very clearly we can see in both films differences in just in wealth and in economic situations, and I think it's very interesting in regards to kindness, because I think a lot of the frustration does also stem out of the sense of there being no empathy.
Well, yes. I mean, I think that's a huge problem in our entire culture. Hang on. Let me bring you in the show. Welcome to the chairman, a foundational member of the Post-Geek Singularity, Mr. Mao, who also, by the way, where can we find you? Do great videos. You too have your own YouTube channel, and you post videos about your own physical media collection. Where can people find you? Can you not hear that, Jeffrey?
Yeah, Robert, your video is frozen a little bit.
Oh my God, I'm frozen. What the hell? Hang on. Oh, for fuck's sake. Jesus Christ. Am I frozen now? Oh, you know what's gone? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
My camera has gone out.
Oh.
You can hear me. Hang on. Let me see if I can.
I can't see your beautiful face anymore, Robert.
I don't know. Hang on. Let me figure this out. I don't know why I've lost my camera. Hang on one second. I don't know why. I don't know why this has happened. I've lost my camera. Wow. Well, you can hear me, right?
Robert, can you say something?
Hey, Jeffrey, can you hear me?
I cannot hear him or see him.
Yeah.
So
you know what? Whatever happened is, hang on a second. Let me disconnect from Rendezvous just for a second. I'm disconnecting. Yeah. I'm putting you back in. Hang on. There's all kinds of craziness going on. The software is, I mean, I can see it. It's still broadcasting, but
right.
damn it, this has happened before. Hang on, you know what I'm going to do? I might have to change my... Okay, for you and I, hold on. Let me see if I can fix something. Anything before... we're having such a good conversation, god damn it. And now
we're
it's...
still... Don't worry, it's okay.
Oh, no, it's true. I mean, it's like... I have performance anxiety. No, this never happens. No, really. It never happens. I'm usually so good about these things. I mean, my God. I don't know why it's happening now. Let's see. Maybe I can put myself back. Wow, you know what's funny? I can't. Because my camera is not... wow. Well, everyone, you... please say something and make the folks at home feel comfortable.
Well, I just actually wanted to talk about your Raise Hellathon. How amazing that whole idea is, and how the being able to watch you and along with Dave come up with the idea of raising money for a film. And I think that is definitely something that's very exciting, because you're not just promising one film for the price, which would normally be the case. You're getting 3 films for the price. Am I right?
That is. Well, we would hope so.
Right. Well, that's while it is, it's very exciting to see that. And I think you inspired a lot of people, because I think now, the idea of being able to come together, great minds coming together, and that particular episode that you guys had, I always said was like the best of, horror film selections, because you had this great conversation before. But I always say that the great thing about this is that looking at art inspires other art. So if you're interested, or someone's interested in becoming a director or a producer or a writer, you have to study other forms of art. Am I right?
Yes, you are 100% right. 1,000% right.
And you also talked earlier this week about how you gave lectures at universities or wherever these lectures may take place.
I did 2 high school lectures this week.
Right. And I remember when I was in high school, there were always boys that I knew who had, cool jackets with things of,
okay, look at this. I have this is the first time I've used this camera angle.
Oh.
I've never used this before, because
Robert,
apparently...
Is it something that's going to shock us?
Yeah.
Is it metal?
I know, but this is like a low... This camera is like 5 years old. So...
Well, it's a different point of view of you. I feel like I need to turn my... No, we don't want to turn my camera. But it's a different point of view, and it's a great point of view, Robert. Sometimes you need to take things up a little bit.
Yeah, so here we are. I want Jeffrey Mao to come back, but I don't know why this happened. And apparently this camera that's so low rent, I mean, it's 5 years old, but here I am.
But the other day you were talking about some of your favorite science fiction movies, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't hear. I mean, there were so many great suggestions, and everybody had a lot of great topics on it. But I like the film, and I'm sure you've heard of it, Dark City.
Come on, man. I own that movie.
Yeah, I love that film. Of course, it has Jennifer Connelly, so that's always a bonus. But what I liked about it was just how creepy it was. Like it had this eerie thing. We still don't even know where they are. Like at the end, like where the revelation of just the fact that they don't know what exactly has happened to them, and that they're sort of trapped in this existence of high manipulation is great. And I guess it kind of like has a Matrix feel to it, but it was creepy. Like it was a very creepy feel.
No, I love, that was directed by Alex Proyas, who directed like Knowing, and he directed The Crow, with Brandon Lee. I mean, yes. I'm a huge fan, and I love Dark City. I think, and there's 2 versions of it. When it first came out in America, it comes with a text crawl
Okay.
where they explain the whole thing. Like
Oh,
this,
you mean actually in the film in the beginning or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah. They say
Okay.
that there's aliens and whatever. You don't know you're on an alien. You're not supposed to know you're on some alien environment. That's part of the
Oh,
mystery. And
yes.
and the Americans, when they first, New Line was like, well, people apparently don't understand this movie, so we have to. I mean, so lame, so stupid, so
Yeah,
stupid.
it was totally understandable. Honestly, Robert, one of the other things that I have to commend them on is just the costumes in this film were
Oh.
fantastic. It looked great. I mean, it looked like it was from that time period.
Oh, it's fantastic. I
Yeah.
love Dark City. I have it on Blu-ray. I do love it. By the way, there's some people writing in. Throg sends in a tip
Yeah.
and says, if you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. Malcolm X said that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe it. And as I always say, in the end, only kindness matters, and that's the song "Hands." I think that what we're seeing overall is just a lack of ethics in a lot of these industries that are giving out news to people, and
Right.
essentially, they can just kind of, throw that to the wind. And since they don't have there's no accountability for it, they're kind of getting away with it. But we've had so many good quotes in the chat tonight, and so many of the PGS community have really just been responding with their support for just being overall kind to one another. Another film I wanted to mention, if you don't mind, is there's actually two.
I don't
Safety
mind
Net-
mention.
Thank you. Safety Not Guaranteed. Have you seen Safety Not
Yep.
Guaranteed? I love that film. And am I correct in saying maybe it was like somewhat more of a low budget film? I'm not knocking it.
Yeah,
for that.
it was $1 million movie.
Yeah, and I think they did a beautiful job, but I love the leap of faith, which reminds me of Millennium as well. The leap of faith that she had to take in the story to say that she is going to go with this man or trusts him. I believe in him. I think a relationship oftentimes is a leap of faith. And
No,
yeah.
No, I totally agree.
And so I liked Safety Not Guaranteed. And of course, when I went to go see it in the theater, I went in completely not knowing what this film was about. And, was pleased as punch to see that it had, like this science fiction feel to it. But it also felt very old school. Felt very old school science fiction. It wasn't glitzy. It wasn't glamorous. It was just down to the basics. He was like, we have to get and do this right now. And she had to trust him no matter what. Another film that and this is the last one I'm going to mention.
No, but can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Would you mind if I brought in somebody else to join our conversation?
No, and not at all.
'Cause
Absolutely.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't want to be like a toxic male.
No, I would never. What, Robert?
But
no.
I have Russ Whitfield joining us.
Yes.
Russ, can you hear me?
Hello.
Russ, can you hear me?
Russ?
Maybe Russ can't hear me. Russ, are you with us? Maybe Russ doesn't know he's even on the show.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Russ. Russ.
We can't hear you.
Russ. In
Wait,
a
maybe
world where Russ Whitfield, you can't hear us.
Russ, can you hear us?
I don't know.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. I'm trying to use hand signals.
I don't know. Yes, now he knows. Russ.
I can hear.
Yes.
But
Now I
can't
can hear you,
Rob, or see you. I'm just egg timing over here at the minute.
Well,
hello, Russ. How are you?
I'm good, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with YouTube royalty, such as yourself. I'm kind of like, whoa. I've seen you commenting loads of times on Midnight's Edge. Like I've seen you in the comments there plenty, and now I've see you on here. So it's kind of cool to be online, but I don't know if I'm going to get on because all I can see is the egg timer, and I've turned off the YouTube sound because obviously you get it in double stereo if you're listening to that. Right. So Let's see.
Russ,
Robert,
you're on. Russ, you're
Yeah.
on. You're on the
Can
show.
you hear Robert, Russ? Can you hear
Not
him?
no, not at all. I can just see you and
Oh.
hear you.
You know why? I bet he can't. Okay.
So
Tell
should I
Russ
duck
tell
out,
Russ he's
maybe?
live on. Tell him not to duck out.
Well, Robert says please stay on because he wants to talk to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll talk to you through you. So first of all, ask Russ, where is he coming to us from?
Robert would like to know, Russ, where are you broadcasting from?
I'm broadcasting from a place called Richmond in the United Kingdom. It's just by the River Thames.
Nice.
Oh.
Now I want to ask him, would he consider
And
himself?
yes, I am fucking metal. I'm so metal.
Yes!
I drink my
Fuck
tea from
yeah,
an Iron Maiden
dude!
cup
Fuck
first
yeah!
thing in the morning. All right, so yeah.
Ask Russ.
No, I'm a big fan of Rob's. It's my favorite channel on YouTube. I listen to it all the time. It's absolutely brilliant. I love that it represents a balanced view of all things pop culture, which I really, really enjoy. It's not just one side and getting triggered about everything. So yeah, it's a great show.
Now, Russ, Robert is giving me questions to ask you.
Okie doke.
When did he become an imagination connoisseur?
Robert would like to know, when did you become an imagination connoisseur?
Oh my goodness. I think probably about 1977. I went to see Star Wars in a cinema in a place called Hounslow. That started me on my journey, but I'm a massive DC Comics fan. So all my dreams came true in 78 when I went to the cinema and saw Christopher Reeves and all that stuff, and became an avid reader of comics. But also I like historical fantasy, things like that. When I was very, very small, I saw a film from the 60s called The 300 Spartans. And that started off a lifelong interest in all things historical. And then I sort of graduated from that to fantasy. I wrote a few novels back in the day that weren't terribly good. And yeah, currently trying to get a movie off the ground, which is, I was really interested in the last in the last Midnight Metal when they were talking about the Hellathon.
Right.
And I know Rob's struggle and his pain of having like the entire creative crew in place. You've got actors that are interested, you've got directors on board, and no one seems to have the money to make a low budget. Mine's a martial arts movie. And we've got a fairly big star on board to star in this, and it's kind of like, oh well, why is it 2.6 million? We just made a movie for 1.5. It's like, well, you can't make a movie like this for 1.5 million and pay the people that you want to get in it that can do the stuff that you need them to do. So it's an uphill battle, but it's one I have to. When you get your teeth into something, it's like, well, I can't quit now. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And you're based in New York.
I certainly am. I am based in New York. I live in Long Beach, New York, and I've lived in New York my whole life. And, of course, you have heard me chat. I love science fiction. I love sex in cinema in all genres. And I have a passion for it. I love to actually see, what I also love is seeing everybody in the community and the great interaction that we have. It's inspiring. It makes me want to write and create and do things. So, this is so much fun for me as well.
What do you write? What kind of stuff do you write?
Well, I haven't been writing I do a lot of biography stuff, and but I haven't been writing. I don't really consider biographies original stories unless it's an autobiography. So if I'm writing about myself, which I just can't believe that would be the most interesting story to everyone else. I write quite a bit. I use a lot of dictation tools, and then I go back and re-edit. But I do interviews. I also go to live music events, specifically electronic dance music events, and I review those as well. So those are some of the things that I'm involved in.
Russ, can you hear me at all?
I know. It's not exactly metal, but it is metal because everybody that's in this genre comes from it. Have you heard of synthwave? Like
yes,
gunship?
I have.
Oh my god, it's so metal.
Robert would like to ask you another question.
Can you really not hear me?
Robert?
He can't hear me at all.
Are you still there?
Wow. Hang on.
Oh dear, now I can't hear him.
Hang on.
Can you still hear Russ?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear and see you perfectly, yes.
Can you hear him now, Whitfield?
Hello,
Russ?
Can you?
No.
Can you guys hear me at all?
Like, all I've got is an egg timer. Just
He says no, he can't hear you, Robert.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, then let me ask you this. Let me tell you, Russ. Let me ask you this. What made you decide to sit down and write your first screenplay?
Okay, Robert would like to know what made you decide to sit down and write your first screenplay.
How can I say this without coming across as a bit of a twat? I think it's sometimes you watch movies and you see movies are getting made, and I think anybody that's a creative has to have a little bit of chutzpah, because you get told no and you're crap so many times. But I sat there and I thought, you know what, man, I can do better than this. And it was always a thought that was in my mind. I ended up going to a movie party, which is a wrap party of a low budget movie that we had here in the UK, starring a brilliant martial artist called Cecily Faye. And she released this movie, and I got invited to the wrap party, and I met a guy there that was a film director. And we're having a few lagers, and he said, oh, you know, what do you do? I said, oh, I wrote a couple of books, blah, blah, blah. He said, oh, you should write a screenplay. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And I bought the screenplay Bible, Save the Cat, read it, and thought, yeah, man, I can do this. And
a friend of mine wrote that,
and I haven't yet done it. And there's a part of me that thinks maybe I should have stuck to writing novels. But once you get I think once you start on a path, you have to see it through, as hard as it is, and with all of the knockbacks, you just got to keep going. And maybe you'll never get there. I mean, it's to get a film made, or off the ground, or to a decent budget, decent standard, is almost the impossible dream. But if you don't have a dream and a goal to strive to and aspire to, then what are you doing? You're just going to work, paying the bills, going to bed, getting up. So for me, it's a brilliant outlet. And kind of good news, bad news, I was just made redundant from my job. So it's kind of crap, and I've been there for like 20 years. But off the back of that, I'll get a decent, a decent payout. Yeah, exactly. To see me through for a couple of months. So, it's a good opportunity to work on some different projects, as well as this main one that I've got going on, and try and get a few more irons in the fire. So that's kind of what I intend to do before I jump back into the job market.
Yeah, you're making lemons out of lemonade.
Exactly. But yeah, it's a big adjustment. It's kind of like, wow, it's all I've known for 20 years. But yeah, I asked about New York because I used to go out with a girl from Bay Ridge. We only split up recently, actually. So I was backwards and forwards before COVID. I was back and forward, 6 weeks in New York, 6 weeks in London,
wow.
6 weeks in New York, 6 weeks in London. Yeah. It was
long distance relationship.
It was, but COVID did for us in the end. She had to go home last year, and then couldn't get back in to England. No. And even when she could, it was like, when I've got a job now, I can't really quit the job. So we just decided to go our separate ways, which was sad but understandable.
Mm-hmm. I think Rob has another question.
I do. I think people can. I hope people can hear me in the stream. I don't know why Russ can't hear me, but first of all, there's a couple of super chats. Mr. Sean 3 Kids sends in a super chat and says, "Who is more at fault for Star Wars 7 or 9? Did J.J. hand Rian Johnson something to work with? Unfortunately, he blew it. I blame Ryan for not knowing." And Rob, you missed my other super chat. What movie is a bigger travesty? Kingdom of the Crystal Skull or Rise of Skywalker, and why? Can you convey that to Russ?
Is it in the chat, Robert?
No, that is not in the chat, actually. Or maybe it will. Maybe it is.
Let me see if I can find it.
I don't know why. No, it's so frustrating that I don't know what happened. Why no one can hear me?
No, it's not Guy Ritchie.
Well, can people hear you in the? Are they saying they can hear you?
I don't even know. Oh yeah. So Ash says they can hear me. They can.
Okay. Can you just tell me the first chat question, Robert? Again, I'm sorry.
The first chat question comes from Mr. Sean 3 Kids.
Okay.
Who is more at fault for the Star Wars 7 or 9 disaster? Did JJ hand Rian Johnson something to work with? Unfortunately, he blew it up. I blame Ryan for not knowing Star Wars. here's can I just say something if people can hear me?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
they can see me. I mean, what I find really interesting is that Rian Johnson tried to make a Star Wars movie that he wanted to make in the situation he was in. He thought he was making a great film. And in his mind and what he was trying to do, now it might be wrong, it might be different from what you wanted, but he was doing his best to make the Star Wars movie he wanted you to see. Like, Rian Johnson did not sit there and go, I'm going to destroy Star Wars and Luke Skywalker. He wasn't trying to do that. He was trying to make the best movie he thought he could make. And by the way, while they were making it, so did Disney. Disney thought they were making the best Star Wars movie ever. They were coming off a $2 billion gross off The Force Awakens. No one at Disney Corporate understood or even thought about the fact that what they were making was not good. Because Force Awakens made $2 billion. And Rian Johnson was directing episodes of Breaking Bad, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just
Well,
want to
I'm
say...
you make a good point, Robert. I'm going to propose the same question to Russ. Russ, Robert was responding to a super chat where the person was asking whether or not Rian Johnson was responsible for, let's say, the outcome of his Star Wars films. And I'm guessing that maybe the super chat is in response to him suddenly admitting that, the plan may not have been up to par. Robert's comment, Robert mentioned that he felt that Rian Johnson and the studio made the best film that they could, and felt that they did the right thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I kind of hold Rian Johnson largely responsible for what some people would call the demise of the demise of Star Wars. Yeah, I mean, I think that J.J. Abrams coming out with this pseudo political admission that we didn't have a plan, even though some of the stars have come out and said, look, 1 week I was it Daisy Ridley was Ben Kenobi's daughter, and then she was Palpatine's daughter, and then she was back to Ben's. I think that this, we talk about giving creatives complete control. So you can see this coming to the fruition with something like Zack Snyder's Justice League, and you go, oh my God, if only they'd let him do what he wanted to do from the beginning, we'd have had this genius operatic superhero saga. And I think with Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy and such like, who I know Rob's got a great deal of respect for.
Yes, I do.
But I think this was a case of sort of ideology over storytelling. And although these films are beautifully shot, it's not for me. I think that yes, we must strive to do new things with our franchises and with our heroes and stuff like that. But I do think that there is a degree of respect. You have to have respect for legacy. That these franchises have existed for so many years. And yeah, we want to appeal to the younger kids. But I think in some offices in the Hollywood elite, that there's no perception of what's actually going on in fandom. So I find, in my limited experience, without wishing to generalize, younger fans have a whole lot more to consume than we ever did. And I'm 50. Okay, so I'm a similar age to Rob. So we had Star Wars, Superman, Battlestar Galactica on TV and comics, stuff like that. And these are deep-seated loves that we've had all of our lives. Whereas now, if you look around, there's so much mass media. And I don't think the older generation ought to be forgotten in all of this, because they're the ones that are going to buy the special edition. They're going to buy the steelbook. They're going to buy the hot toys. They're going to do all of that. And I just think thumbing your nose, as I felt that Rian Johnson's movie did at everything that had come before, was an awful call. And to deviate even from whatever outline Abrams had, and just say, no, we're not doing that anymore, we're going to kill the baddie, and then watch these other creators scramble to try and make something of it. It was, not a fan of him at all, I'm afraid. Sorry, Rob, but not for me.
Listen, Rita.
What about you?
Yeah.
Can you?
What do you think of it?
I'm going to tell you in a second.
Keep him going on. I need to go take a leak just so no one can hear, or I think the whole channel, just the whole world can hear, but they can see the two of you. So here's what I would say to Russ. I love this conversation you're having.
Yes.
I would ask Russ, as someone who's written novels and all this, what is important in terms of storytelling and creating characters, and why did The Last Jedi fail?
So, Russ, Robert would like to know, in your opinion, what is important in storytelling and creating, and why did The Last Jedi fail?
I think, well, to answer the first part of the question, I think character and plot. Okay, so you need to have any story needs to be about a who does something. So that's your sort of key element of any story. Unless you're a genius, unless you're a Tarantino who can do stuff that normal mortals can't do. So I think, as long as you have the technical or the basics in place, then you can tell a good story, beginning, middle, and you have your arcs. The Covenant of the Arc. Everyone's got to have an arc. Why did The Last Jedi fail? I feel because its very intent was burn the past and kill it if you have to and all that stuff. I think it's one of those movies that set out to be divisive from its inception. We're not going to give you what you want. We're going to give you what we think you need. Now, I think you can get away with that in certain franchises, maybe in a Star Trek. I don't know it as well as Rob, but I think when you've got something as globally encompassing as Star Wars, you have to provide a certain fan service. Not to have Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo and Chewie and all those people in the same scene in a movie where you've been gifted an opportunity to do this is madness to me. So I think we can buck convention, but there's also disrespecting that convention. And I think it failed because it set out to be divisive. It set out to piss people off. And there was the whole business strategy from Disney, wasn't there, about that they had their theme park and they got rid of all the old stuff and they put all the new stuff in and suddenly nobody wants to go. So I think when you set out to alienate a percentage of your audience under the guise of challenging it, and then you're posting Twitter pictures of middle fingers and telling people to F off and all the rest of it, that's why it failed, because you want to split your fan base. It deliberately seemed to be an intent to do that. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Robert, are you still there? Okay. I also did want to add to that, and I guess Robert has gone to take care of just some personal business for a moment. Mm-hmm. I've heard some people say two things. One, there was one person who commented that that there were specific mistakes that were made in the film, even though they were deliberate. Clearly, there were conflicts in some of these films. And also, like, for example, there's a scene where the lead character is able to do something and someone says, well, how did you learn how to do that? And her response is, well, I don't know. And we didn't get the follow through of she must be the chosen one, or, that what you're expecting as a person. If you were reading a book, you'd be expecting that, or if you were looking at any other sort of media, you were expecting that response. It didn't have to be from her, but it had to be from somewhere. And then also the conflicts where they'll say things like, I remember there was a scene where someone said, oh, well, we don't, they've never used clones or something. And you immediately as a fan, you say, well, that's a conflict. Clearly, whoever wrote this doesn't understand what this franchise is about. So I kind of think that, it is an error when you go ahead and put things in a franchise that actually conflict with the true heart of the IP. The other thing that I was going to say, and I don't know whether this is true, but I've heard some people mention that one of the reasons why they wanted to kind of erase the old and bringing the new had to do with copyright issues. And I guess they had a sense that if they could continue to create new characters, then they wouldn't have to pay copyright or royalties to other creators. And I hope to goodness that that's not the case. And perhaps those two things are fishing. But, you know, this has been such the whole sequel trilogy has been such a conundrum, maybe the biggest conundrum in entertainment that we've witnessed in our lifetime. Because no matter what, I feel like we were promised something, but we didn't get what we were promised.
No, there was no promise of the premise at all. And you were asking about storytelling, you know, before. I think there's the old adage of, you know, set up and payoff. Okay, and this can be like the smallest thing that you set off and that pays off later on. It can be a tiny little thing, and you go, "Oh goodness, yeah, I remember him or her doing that, and that's why they can do that." But I think with the Rey character, there was no setup. You know, she lives alone on a planet, and all of a sudden she can fly the Millennium Falcon. She can fix the Millennium Falcon. She can use the Force. She can do absolutely everything that we know takes time to learn. Okay, you don't. Where
back,
is
by
this,
the way. If
how
anyone
did she fly
cares.
this ship that she's never seen before? What was the Millennium Falcon even doing there? Why was it just sat on a random planet? Abandoned. There was so many questions, and I think this is the problem with The Last Jedi in its rush to subvert expectations and all this kind of thing. It forgot about the basic tenets of storytelling. I mean, at the beginning, there's the thing, they're having the space battle, and there's like 95 Star Destroyers parked there, and all these bombers are heading towards the Dreadnought, and no one on the Star Destroyer thinks to go, sir, there's a spaceship coming along there. Perhaps we should blow it up before it gets to the Dreadnought. Yes, Commander, do that. You know, like one of the 30 Star Destroyers would have done that.
Right.
Then you've got the whole thing. They're chasing the rebel ship, even though the Republic are in charge. I don't quite know how this First Order got to be so powerful. But anyway.
Whoever it is, yes.
Yeah, and they're chasing along behind it.
Bad.
And we know that they've got light speed and the rebels don't, so why don't you just send 2 ships into light speed and cut them off and blow them up, and that would be the end of it. So in this massive rush to undo everything, the basic blocks of that story don't make sense. Like the 2 characters, Finn and I can't remember the girl's name, they get put in prison, and
yes.
Del Toro's in prison, and he could have escaped at any, but yet he seems to be waiting there just for them to arrive to escape. Right. But there's so many things in that story just don't make sense that you kind of find yourself taken out of the movie. And the less said about Mary Poppins, Princess Leia, the flying across through space after she was blown out of a spaceship, the better. That was, you know, I saw that and I'm just like, what the hell's going on here?
When they jumped when is it called? Jumping the shark moment?
Well, that was Fonzie, wasn't it? It was Fonzie from Happy Days, jumping the shark. Yeah.
By the way, can you hear me?
I certainly can hear you. Oh, just one moment, Russ.
Sure.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
It's so weird now. I don't know why all this has gone foobar, but Justin Popper says, I know you love people as much as you love movies, but all of the movies you love, what is your least favorite? Same to you.
Okay. Of all the movies that I love, what is my least favorite? Is that the question, Robert?
Yeah.
Okay. Of all the movies I love, what is my least favorite? Oh, goodness. Wow. Usually it's the other way around. People want to know what your favorites are. Well, I'm gonna say, and this is somewhat controversial, and I had been thinking about this before because, Robert, you had mentioned that there's a director who he's the gentleman who made The Exterminator, and
James Glickenhaus.
That's right. James Glickenhaus is continuing on in his career and making a new film, and you were very excited about it. And what I wanted to say is that when I was probably about 7 or 8, my father and my brother took me to see a movie called The Exterminator. And as you can
Why
imagine,
did they do this? Wow.
As you can imagine, I wasn't supposed to go and see that film.
Yeah, no, you weren't. A beheading in the opening scene, not good.
The Exterminator. My God.
Oh my God. Oh.
And I didn't understand what was going. I'm just you can see what I'm like now at this age, so you can imagine what I was like as a little girl. And I was the only little girl in that theater. It was
You'd
packed
be the
with,
best high school girlfriend ever.
God, I'm not
It was-
surprised.
it was packed with people like my brother and my dad, and they were incredibly excited to see this film because it was around the time that like Taxi Driver and all the sort of gritty New York films were coming out.
Yeah.
But there was a big thing about The Exterminator was that he was a Vietnam veteran, and at the time they were reviled. And I guess like if it was in the UK, it'd be like the Falkland Islands veteran, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And like my father and brother had to see this film, but they were saddled with me. So my mother said, well, go and take her to the movies, but don't take her to see anything too scary. So one thing I remember about being in the theater, of course, I'm like, I was okay afterwards, but I remember there was this one part where the police officers had mentioned that the men were tied up and that a rat had kind of like gnawed off part of the guy's face. And, I realized at that point, I do appreciate the art form. This was someone's real story. And, I remember New York when it looked like that, when there were just buildings that were collapsed everywhere and there was animosity like that. And especially in regards to the Vietnam veteran situation. But I remember, a New York that was like that. And I think it's important, as an art form to go ahead and tell that point of view. It wasn't apologetic. It was, a film that had in it the realities of a war, which many people, unfortunately are still experiencing. But for the most part, unless you were in a world war, you wouldn't have seen it. So I think Vietnam might have been one of the first times that we would see a man's point of view. And, I really love films that have a man's point of view, but that was not the right film for me to see at the age of 7.
No.
I saw it as a teenager on video.
Right. I'm still very it did not traumatize me. It was a very interesting thing because there are people who have experiences like this, and we need to acknowledge that. And I think that it takes a special type of person to go ahead and say that they're going to have a film that shows brutality in its most worst form. I'm getting some feedback. Is that Robert? Are you still there?
I just lost you there for a second. You went, oh my goodness, there's Rob. I can see Rob. Can you hear me?
Yes. Did I fix it?
Whoa.
Oh, you're back.
There
Robert.
we go. We're
My
in finally.
God, you can
You
see me.
pressed
Yes.
the magic button.
I was trying to fix it, and my God, The Exterminator knows The Exterminator, and my God, that movie was one of the. I saw it on cable, and it had a beheading in the beginning, like an incredibly violent. Why did you attack Lumpox? And then
July 12th.
that freaked me out.
It was, of course, at that age, I didn't understand what I was watching. And of course, many years later, I had to revisit the film to understand. And I think that this is very important, that when you get a film and you look at it in the context that it was made, because that film is not for everybody. It's meant for a person, a man or a woman, who has gone through the experience of war and has come home and finds the obstacles that he faced in New York were the obstacles that every Vietnam veteran faced when they came back home, being dejected, unappreciated, unloved. That's what this film is about. Now, unfortunately, I've not had that experience, but I can understand it. So for that sense, it wouldn't be a favorite for me, because it's not necessarily anything that I'm going to say I want to rewatch, and I feel that I have to rewatch. I think it's an important film in cinema, but it's not going to be a favorort for me because I just can't watch that beheading again.
By the way,
I
didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to say hello to Russ, because we haven't actually talked. And I wanted to thank you for being here, and thank you for your contribution, because it's incredible. And it is decidedly not metal to have technical difficulties. But now that I've surmounted them, apparently, using a different camera. It's great to meet you, and I want to thank you for being here. And by the way, Russ, I have to ask, are you feeling metal tonight?
I said to her, I'm so metal, I drink my tea from an Iron Maiden cup first thing in the morning.
Oh, my God.
To get rid of my hangover from last night. So
That
yes,
is
I'm decidedly...
okay. So if I can just say, Russ, you are fucking metal.
Well, I dropped out of college to join a heavy metal band in the 80s. So I kind of... I never went to college because I told my mum, oh man, I'm going on the road.
You had the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, the School of Metal. I love it to this day.
You know, it's funny.
Russ, I can query you online. Would I be able to find you if I looked for your name online, Russ?
Embarrassingly, you probably could. Yeah.
What was the name of your
Okay,
band?
no, I don't
Come on, what was the name of your band?
You mentioned
my band.
Synth,
No,
and
I think you'd probably see me on there because of my books. I think not my band. No.
Well,
I was
let me ask you, shamelessly, the fact that you're a published author. Listen, everyone in the chat right now, all of you listening, Russ, go buy his damn book. Russ, where can people buy your books?
I think on Amazon, but the first one is I'm really ashamed of it. It's like the worst book I've ever read.
Well, tell us your best book.
The second one. The second one's
okay,
pretty good.
what's the second one called?
It's called Roma Victrix. I wrote a trilogy of books about a lady gladiator in ancient Rome.
Dude, I'm in. I
yeah.
want to see that movie. Sell that shit. Come on. Why can't we see that?
I want to see that movie, and that's why another reason why I started trying to get into films and stuff like that. But I think it'd probably be too expensive to make.
Well, just don't make it the one woman in Gladiator that comes out on the she with the arrow and she gets cut in half. Don't make that about her.
No. It's not about that. No, she's a Spartan priestess, and she ends up getting shipwrecked and being trained as a gladiator, and life and love and trauma in the arena and all of that stuff.
It sounds refreshing.
It also sounds fucking metal, is how it sounds. That's what I'm saying.
Metal as fuck. Yeah, it's
metal as fuck. This is fantastic. This is what I'm talking about. My God. So, by the way, you guys are both the two of you are having a great conversation. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just happy to be able to be an interloper and finally figure out what kind of newfangled technology is here that I can actually join the conversation.
Robert, you can interrupt whenever you want.
Rob, I was saying before to this is my favorite channel on YouTube. I've written you a couple of letters, and this is my favorite channel because it's so balanced and there's no agenda. You're just here to talk about pop culture and what you think about it, and whatever somebody else's slant or point of view is, you'll accept that and take it on its merits, which I really, really love. There's no outrage, there's no shrieking that it's too woke or it's not woke enough or anything like that. It's just down the middle, and I really appreciate the work that you and all your guys do, and especially throughout the pandemic. It's been absolutely fantastic. So thank you. I really appreciate you and the Post-Geek Singularity.
I can't, Russ, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for that. But, what's funny to me is that wasn't what I set out to do. I thought everybody just liked stuff. To me, I am literally sitting in a 2-car garage that there's no cars here. It's full. The Robservatory is full of everything I love. Like, I'm surrounded by graphic novels and books and physical media and model kits and all this. And I love all of this stuff. And
me too.
And the thing is, when it falls short, I understand. You're an author. Like you spin straw into gold. You're creating something from nothing. You're facing an empty page. I don't know how you write, or an empty word processing program on your screen. Now, to do that, to write a book, is an optimistic act. I mean, that's like, I'm going to start a project, and I'm going to put myself, I'm going to spread it thick on the pages, and give you something it's uncut me. And my whole life, I've wanted to write a book, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know.
You totally can do it, Rob. It's something you've said before many, many times. There's a part of you and anybody that, and you are, with your writing and things like that. If you have that gene, I guess you've said many times, Rob. You know what? I can sit here, I can entertain people for a couple of hours a day, okay? And this is like I read a magazine, I do it, and I spent 5 years of my life making Tango Shalom. Now, it's probably more economical in terms of your time and output and all the rest of it to stay on YouTube. But you're not going to just stay on YouTube. You are going to pursue other creative projects. You are going to write other scripts. I remember you read the first page of the one with the religious leader and things like that. And I thought, that's fucking fantastic. I want to see that film. And there's something
by the way,
you that won't let you do it, right?
You really do want to see that film. I mean,
I really do, yeah.
It's. By the way, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, it's like my whole thing is I revel in creation, not just mine but other people's. And whenever anybody I know makes something, I find it extraordinary. And I used to say to Mark Altman, who I made Free Enterprise with, I'd be like, as fans, I think we're obligated to do something, like to give something back. Because if we're taking in all of this stuff, like all of these people who've done all this work and we love it all, we soak it up like sponges, isn't it? Like, it doesn't mean we have to make something that's Gone with the Wind or Citizen Kane, but shouldn't we make something? Like, shouldn't we, why just be a sponge? And Mark, to be fair, I mean, over the last 5 years, Mark Altman, who I made Free Enterprise with, he's written books about Battlestar Galactica and Buffy and Bond. He has a Star Wars book coming out, like the unauthorized history of. So he's still making things. And he would always give me shit. And I'm like, you've made more things for fandom than I have. I just have my YouTube channel. And I'm like, I really believe that in this world, we should do something for our fellow travelers on this planet.
I couldn't agree more. I was saying to at the moment, we're trying to get a movie off the ground. I love martial arts movie, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bruce Lee, all of that stuff. So I thought, right, okay, I'm going to write karate film. And we got everything in place, okay, except the money. And you were talking about this yourself, and you can write the best thing. We've got a fairly well-known person to be the lead. We've got people are available to make the film. And we're looking for something like 1.25 million in equity.
And now, is that not insane? What you're asking for, somebody should just write you that check. Like, my God, make that movie. As a matter of fact, they should give you $2.5 million for a contingency. It's, as you know, it's unbelievably frustrating.
It really is. And, we were talking to Slated. I don't know if you know Slated. And they were like, yeah, and great. And now it's like, oh, no, can we do it for less? And it's like, well, we can't. We've had
do it for less. You're already doing it for anything below $2 million. You should just do because you'll make your money back.
Well, this is it, but it's 1.25 below the line. So, we'd get the rest of it back in tax credits from where we're going to shoot it and all that stuff. But that's what we need in equity. And it's not a lot of money in terms of films, but people are so risk averse.
Dude.
So, well, you know this better than me, right?
But you can't lose with that. I'll bet. And, dude, I am right there with you. I mean, I have to tell you, Russ, my God, today I found out that, like, Tango Shalom is now it's in a, I'll say this live. There's one distributor that wants it, and they play games. And there is another distributor that came into the scenario today that doesn't play games. And the reason they came into it was because one of the people that works for this company was a judge at the film festival that it's going to play at next. And
serendipity, Rob.
Yeah, and the judge is like, why isn't this movie distributed yet? And when I found out who she was, I'm like, wow. I mean, she's somebody from a very legit company. And it all, like, what people don't understand is you think that why wouldn't any movie made get distributed? Why is there a problem? Isn't there Isn't there a place in Washington, D.C., like the National Film Distribution Center? They'll buy your indie feature and they'll put it out. They'll make movie posters and send it out to 1,400 screens, and you'll get paid back. I mean, people don't get that. By the way, that doesn't exist. Just so anyone might be. No, it doesn't. And getting your movie out is you can make the best movie in the world, but there will be people that will be like, I don't know how to market this. You know, this might change the world, but I don't know. What do we put on the poster? I don't know. I mean, that's what we all deal with. It's so... sometimes I just want to bang my head against a rock and scoop out both eyes with a teaspoon and just wait till I bleed to death in the sun. It
is teeth-crunchingly frustrating. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to do anything like that, but it's just an uphill struggle. I think writing a book is hard. Writing a screenplay is a lot easier.
Yeah.
But getting your book out is a lot easier than getting your film off the ground, right?
Man, I agree. Oh my God. You can self-publish if you want, but with a movie that costs like hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can't do that.
No.
I mean,
yeah. But the other thing I wanted to say is that, and it is unfortunate that this, you know, creators and gentlemen like you are up against this. People on YouTube are called creators. So YouTube themselves classify individuals who have a channel and broadcast on their channel as a creator. So while it's not a movie, you are creating something. What we're seeing right now is sort of like the movie making process behind the scenes, all the discussion and all of the networking and all the stuff that goes into that you don't see that makes the film fabulous. So this is an important part of the process in a way. And, you know, you're exposing people to community, but also people who just happen to come across this channel as to what's involved in making of a film. And you can't just watch one video and say, yeah, now I know how to make a film. Like, that's ridiculous.
No.
You know, it's let's say you could watch a year or two's worth of videos and progressively understand the process. Maybe you'd have an understanding of it, but it's not something you can sort of just pick up off the fly. And if you're fortunate enough to be, you know, on a production and you can, you know, kind of like shadow somebody and figure out what's going on, it might take you some time to understand all the steps. So, you know, a channel like this one, like the, you know, like your channel, Robert, is very important because it provides that experience to a person without them actually, you know, or at least an idea of what it may entail. So there is, you know, I think I could almost compare it to somebody who may be learning in a classroom setting, and perhaps the instructor is an instructor, but maybe they don't make films, versus speaking to somebody who actually makes films, or someone who wants to make a film. An author, you know, a published author who is in the business, you know, this is a great experience. And I think that that's why you've had the reaction to your channel that's been so positive as well. So,
no, I mean, look, I've been fascinated. Like, when I started this channel, I didn't have a plan. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, the late, great John Schnepp said, you know, you have an interesting take on fandom. You should start a YouTube channel. I'm like, that's work. You know, I was working on other things, and I'm like, what would that be? And then my girlfriend Elizabeth bought me this microphone, and she said, it's time, start a YouTube channel. And it's been, I didn't know what it was I had to offer. Like, if you're on YouTube, here's my lesson, YouTubers or wannabe YouTubers. You need to have something you want to give, something that's you. What is that? What are you going to give to the world? What do you want to do? And at the time, I didn't even know. I had no
Rob,
idea.
I think what shines through with your channel, and it especially shone through the other day, and I'm going to pinch one of your words here vis-a-vis Richard Donner, is verisimilitude, right? It's not like
My
you're putting
favorite
this
word.
on. You are a genuine nerd. And that comes across. And the funniest thing I've seen on Observation was when you guys were talking about the Hellathon. And it's just like a meeting that you have, a creative meeting in the pub, right? And you're all sitting there getting pissed or getting drunk, and you can,
Oh, we're getting
no,
pissed.
and then we could do this, and then we could do this, and then we could do that. Oh no, wouldn't it be brilliant if we did that? And the three of you were getting so excited about this one idea that you had. And that's not fake. That's like totally real. Like, if we do this, it's going to be so awesome, and it shines through. And I think that's the same with the drinker and with other channels. You can tell that these people are genuine fans, genuinely have something to say, and genuinely want to entertain like-minded people. And I think that really shines through Observations and the other shows.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's funny because when you are on YouTube, you suddenly start watching YouTube channels. And I was on YouTube for 3.5 years. I paid no attention to YouTube when I was on Collider Heroes. I love the show, but I didn't watch it. Like I showed up, I would do the show and leave. And it wasn't, I had no stake in it. I was happy to do it. And I did it for 3.5 years, but I didn't. Now that I started this channel, I've started to watch YouTube, like study YouTube. And one of the things that I loved, like I really loved Midnight's Edge videos. I just loved the way they were done. I liked the people, and then I got to meet them and stream with them, and I like them. And they're always trying to make their step up their game. And then the Critical Drinker, my God, I love that guy. I mean, I was like, you know what? If you want to know how to write and write franchise properties or understand characterization or what makes something good, and I understand, like Red Letter Media, Mr. Plinkett, that the drinker is a persona. He's creating a character.
Oh, yeah.
But that said, for the most part, he is spot on. I mean, and by the way, he's a novelist. He's a published author. Yeah. And he really gets storytelling. And I think that whether you agree with him or not, if you watch the Drinker's videos, it's like going to college. Like you couldn't get, if you watch the last 3 years of the Critical Drinker's output, you could not get a better understanding of storytelling.
Yeah, but Robert, I also want to say something about the drinker. He has that gift, and I think that I don't know how common it is in the screenwriting community, but he has that gift, and the gift is like he can take a story and fix it.
Right.
So you get 1,000 scripts and like, oh, this one's okay, but it's not quite there, or there's something wrong with this, or they say, well, you got to fix this. Someone has to find out what's wrong and fix it. And not everybody can do that. And I think that the Critical Drinker could probably do it because he's already doing it when he does his reviews of films and says, this is what's wrong. And what they could have done is they could have done this. Why not let this person do it? It would fit better into the film, and that can make or break a film.
Oh, look, I agree, and I think that one of the crazy things about corporate Hollywood is when you're looking at a spreadsheet in a corporation, there are attributes you want to have for the people you hire, and I think one of the crazy things about that is that doesn't work in the entertainment business. You can't just quantify people because everyone's a cracked artist and weird and strange, and that's why they're people you want to hire. And it's a very weird place to be, because if you're in the corporate world, you could just submit your CV or your resume and get the job. In this world, you could have the greatest presentation of all time, and someone would say, yeah, we're not for us. And then you're back out on the street. They even told you, here's your proposal. Everything you've done is amazing. Yeah, but not for us. And you're like, well, but why? Like, don't you want to make something great? It's such a weird... Hollywood is very, very strange. It's a very weird place to work.
Yeah, the one I keep hearing is it's very niche. It's like well, yeah, but the niche is wide, man. People like, in my case, karate movies. It's like,
Well, look at Cobra Kai. I mean, I would think that Cobra Kai's success would make all the peripheral martial arts films a huge genre. Who wouldn't want to make something like that?
Well, we'll see, man. I mean, I don't know. We had some good news recently, so if anything happens with it, of course, I'll let you know, and talk about it some more if we make a movie in South Africa.
Yeah, well, by the way, when we were doing Hills Run Red, the studio said you have to shoot it in South Africa or Bulgaria, and we went to Bulgaria. But I have to tell you, whether you do go to South Africa, you know what's great? I would say this. I'm a huge fan of every foreign crew I've worked with. These are salt of the earth people that bust their ass. And if you are lucky enough to go to South Africa, love your crew because they will do the work. They will go to extraordinary lengths to make sure you have the movie you want.
Yeah, you're not the first person to say that about the crews out there. I heard from another director that they were just grafters. They just would work so hard to produce. One of my mates was in Doomsday. I don't know if you remember that. Had Rona Mitra.
Neil's movie.
Yeah, Neil Marshall.
Yeah.
So Leanne, the girl with the tattoos, is a great mate of mine. She's doing the stunt coordination on this on this film that we're trying to get off the ground. And one of the things we were talking about, and Neil Marshall said, that was the best place to work. That was brilliant. And Lee was fantastic. And the whole crew is fantastic. So I've kind of been enamored of trying to get something done out there because of the dollar to rand ratio and the fact the crews are expert.
Yeah, they're great. By the way, we got some chats. People are firing in questions. Cal Swack Props says, on the subject of James Bond, my biggest issue with License to Kill is not the Miami Vice-style storyline or the using Mexico as a filming location, but rather forcing Bond to choose between Carrie Lowell and Talisa Soto. The movie should end with Bond in a threesome. Well, Swag Props.
I agree.
I mean, as far as Bond girls go, I'm not a fan of License to Kill, but both Carrie Lowell and Talisa Soto are. There's nothing more tasty than the two of them, at least, in my imagination. Yes. So what do you guys think?
You go.
I think that they could spice things up a bit. Why not?
I knew you'd be all down with a threesome. Come on now.
Well, let's just be realistic. Sometimes they happen and, you just don't know how things are going to work out. I just can't believe that he has never, for the man, the international lover that he is, I'm very surprised to imagine him never being with more than one woman or even a man in his life. So let's just be realistic. He's a lover and he's a fighter, but he's also a lover and he's the best lover out there. Everyone wants to be with him. So everybody's dropping their calling card. And, he's just, I don't think he would push anybody out of bed.
Well, according to Skyfall, he does say, what makes you think you're my first? He tells that to Silva. I mean, I'm like, all right. And I look, I think James Bond could exactly what you said. He can do whatever he needs to do because it's part of his job. But he's also a sensualist. Like if he's in a situation where as an agent he would have to seduce a man, I think Bond could do it. I think he would do it. And for him it's like it's the job. That's what I'm here to do. And
he would do a great job.
Yeah, no, he would because he would have to curry favor with whoever he's seducing. And it's funny. As a fan of fiction, I have no problem with that. My image of James Bond would not be shattered if in the course of a mission he had to have some gay sex with some master criminal to get to the codes that got him what he needed. I wouldn't care. I'm like, that's what Bond does. Do you think he just like people like he can kill anybody he wants, but sleeping with a dude?
It's
not
gonna
thinking-
be, he would sleep with like the best looking dude out there, so it would be really attractive, two very attractive men. It's not going to be just an ordinary interlude, and it's, you know, it would be amazing. And I think that, you know, he could pull that out. That might have been the best thing to have done or change with James Bond. Maybe not change, you know, his gender, but to just keep him the incredible man that he is, because, you know, he's capable of so many things we haven't even seen yet. There are so many things that he could come up with that we haven't even gone, you know, to see yet. So that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for those exciting things that he's perfectly capable of, because he's the best. Nobody does it better than James Bond.
It makes me feel sad for the rest. But Mr. Sean Three Kids says, Rob, Mark Hamill complained multiple X's to Rian Johnson that Luke wouldn't do the things he was asking him to do. Also, can you answer my other question about Indiana Jones? Well, what Mr. Sean Three Kids asked, if I can say, he said, what movie is a bigger travesty, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull or Rise of Skywalker? You know, I don't know if you can say which one is bigger. I think they're both shocking failures. And I think one of the things that perplexes everyone is you've got 3 Indiana Jones movies and they're really good. You know, all of them are good. And when you get to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, nothing works. Like, there's a CG gopher at the Paramount Mountain coming out at the beginning of the film. And I wonder, why did they do that? And I don't know if we'll ever get a reason. But to me, a bad movie is a bad movie. And I think Rise of Skywalker and Kingdom of the... They're bad movies because they don't make any sense, because we already have a whole pantheon of films that comes before. So if you're not going to make us believe, why are you doing this?
Where's the verisimilitude?
Yeah, where is it? And what's funny is, you know, when I say verisimilitude, it's verisimilitude within the proscenium of the frame. So Raiders has a lot of matte paintings, it has a lot of miniature effects, animation, but it's set in the 30s. So the very milieu explains anytime, well, that visual effects, it wasn't good. But it doesn't matter, because you're in the 30s, so whatever happens, it looks, you'll buy it, you'll believe. And I don't think people understand that now. Like, okay, if you're going to make a movie in a certain time, make us believe. And I think, you know, I was talking about Inception earlier today. What year does that movie take place in? Does it matter? It's kind of timeless. And I think that's important. I think that's something we all have to keep in mind when we're going to tell stories. We're never going to tell a story that's new, but we can tell a story that's good, and that's the difference.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I think that the way that you can keep stories fresh is depending upon whose point of view you're telling the story from. For example, I sent you a review of a science fiction film called Millennium, made in 1989. Oh,
I read it. I loved your review. Loved it.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you loved it. One thing that I think is very interesting about that film is that, you know, like many time travel stories, you have to kind of keep tabs on what's going on. You know, you're like, I know this is a time travel story, and therefore I must pay attention and keep tabs. But sometimes you can't always do that. So you might need to watch the film again, or if you're in a theater, you're like, I have to see this one more time. Millennium isn't like that, but they still get their point across. Because in the start of the film, you see it from the gentleman's point of view, and it's quite obvious to a filmmaker that that's what's going to happen. Like, not to me, but it's quite obvious to a filmmaker. As you watch it, you say, oh, yeah, this is obviously from this man's point of view. but then there's a switch, and then you can clearly see he doesn't have the ability to see what she's doing when she's out of reach of him, so to speak. And so that's the point of view from her. And so that's when they're telling you the exact same story all over again, but from her point of view in the second half of the film, or let's say in a segment of the film. And I really liked that, but it kept it fresh. It was the same story, gentlemen, just a different point of view.
No, you're right. You're right. By the way, Mr. Sean Three Kids sends in another super chat and says, Rob, Mark Hamill complained multiple times to Rian Johnson about Luke wouldn't do the things that he was asking him to do. Also, can you answer my other question about Indiana Jones? Well, let me just say this. I mean, I've read your question twice now, and I have to ask. You know, Last Jedi, to me, as a movie, I liked it. I watched it. I was like, okay. I don't think it works as a chapter in the Star Wars saga because it betrays the characters. And I don't know why they did that. Why would you do that? Do you guys know?
Yeah, we touched on this earlier on. I think the problem with that particular movie is it's very Inception. The very creative direction was they set out to be divisive, and they actually state this in the movie: burn the past, kill it if you have to. That was their mission statement. And I think that, sorry to go over this again, guys in the chat, but it's like there needs to be a respect.
But wait, let me ask you to take it from a different perspective. You know, I'm all for, like, one of my favorite movies of all time is Unforgiven.
Oh yeah,
Clint Eastwood film. And the reason Unforgiven works is you're taking almost 40 years of Clint Eastwood as a gunslinger hero, high plains drifter, whatever, the man with no name. And what Unforgiven does is it systematically destroys every bit of credibility the Clint Eastwood persona has. I mean, that's the whole point of the film, is that it deconstructs the entire Western romanticism. And it's great. So doing the same thing for, like, Luke could have been a great idea. But the problem I have with the era of modern Star Wars is that there was never any transition. At the end of Return of the Jedi, they won. The rebels won. And then the next movie, Episode 7, can you imagine being 6 or 7 and you're watching those Star Wars movies and you get to the Return of the Jedi and like, oh my God, they've defeated everyone. It's amazing. Luke's a Jedi, Darth Vader's in with the Force. It's great. And then you go and you put in Episode 7. Everything has gone to hell. And so then what? How do you reconcile that? Like, as a viewer, if I had a 7-year-old son, Dad, why did anyone allow the First Order to build a gigantic planet-killing weapon on this moon in firing range of the heart of the Republic? That seems stupid, doesn't it? And then
Rob, you said this yourself. You've got, when Kathleen Kennedy comes out and says, we don't have books and comics to base on. Well, yes, you do. You have an entire expanded universe. Do that. Use that as a basis.
I know.
Star Wars fans loved it. They loved it. And I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but I know that I read those novels and the comics and so on. They were great. You've got your basis right there. Do that. Don't do this other weird thing.
Yeah, no, I don't get it. And by the way, Mr. Tickletrunk says, smash my head with a rock, scoop out my eyes and bleed out. I think I love about you, Rob, that you're never melodramatic. I am never melodramatic. Dude, I am fucking hardcore. I am all about melodramatic. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. But yeah, look, my whole thing is this. How are we as humans are going to make our experience of life better. Like, shouldn't that be the baseline of us, humanity? Don't we want to make our lives better? They're finite. And what I find very interesting, like today, and I'm not even a partisan guy. I mean, I'm a liberal Democrat that has left-wing leanings, but I'm like, basically, I'm a Hollywoodist. Let's figure out what the problem is, fix it, and make our day. And I feel that the frustrating thing about America today is no one really wants to fix a problem, because they think in fixing something you have to declare your political ideology. And it's like, man, we need some things like that need to be fixed. How hard is that? I don't know.
It's an interesting thing, especially not being from the States. I think I love America. I think still think it's the greatest country in the world, and I think there's a tendency, especially in Europe, not so much in the UK, but especially in Europe, is to give America a kick in for absolutely everything, and see America as this sort of hub of all evil. And it's not that. It's not that at all. It's a great country, and it has saved our bacon more than once in the entirety of Europe. And anybody that says different is frankly living in a fantasy world. And we shouldn't be so quick to just, whoever's the president, be it Donald Trump or now Joe Biden, we shouldn't be so quick to give your country a kick in, because despite all of its flaws, and you're going through some times at the moment, it's still a great place, and it is a beacon of freedom. You've only got to look at what's going on in certain other countries that Disney are getting into bed with, or on the other side of Europe. These places they don't have the same values as we do in Western Europe and you do in the States. So, literally, God bless America.
Well, you know what America has, and I learned this in Bulgaria, which I didn't understand before. We Americans have this idea that, like, oh, you want to build a barn or you want to pave some roads? I'll help you. What do you need? And so Americans will go to their neighbor's house and, like, build a deck or the driveway or whatever, and we'll be like, great, that's what we do. And I think that not people, and even Americans now, don't get that. The entire American ideal is that to help somebody improve their position. That's America. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the United States, is as we move through our life cycle, don't we want to make people's lives better? And yes, exploit their talents and make millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, let's make people feel good about themselves. Let's help them achieve their goals, because we'll profit in the end. And yet, I don't think anyone's doing that today.
No, but it's cyclical, Rob, isn't it? I mean, I think this period that we have of navel gazing and being very insular and having too much time on our hands, and everything's become political. This too shall pass, because I think it's ultimately we'll move out of this phase when it just starts to get old, when people are just fed up arguing about politicizing absolutely everything.
Yes.
You look at the Gina Carano incident, and someone gets fired for doing something, whatever. I don't want to kick off that row, but the whole thing just became massively politicized. You look at every single debate on a YouTube or a Facebook thread, and it stopped, 2 notes down, it stopped being about Gina Carano and everybody accusing everybody else of being, National Socialists or communists. It was kind of like, well, no, it's not that. Please stop. But it's every discussion now.
No,
what do you think?
I think that entertainment is no longer entertaining. The purpose of entertainment is to make life enjoyable, to make life bearable. It's a form of escapism that we go to because we need to to kind of like get the weight of the world off of our shoulders. It's also a form of artistic expression, meaning that an artist creates, you know, a film or a piece of artwork for us to understand their point of view. But at the same time, you know, there is an actual area for artists who feel that they have to be political. There's always been an area for artists like that. And it's not that that's something that didn't exist before. It just mainstream entertainment didn't necessarily serve that purpose. A mainstream film is not necessarily meant, you know, to be an overall political statement. It isn't. There have been some films that were that way, that crossed over into mainstream, or may have become categorized as a film like that. Like Easy Rider, someone might say, well, I just set out to make a film about two guys riding, you know, on motorcycles, but it turned into, you know, a movement or something. And that does happen, but it's not supposed to be where Superman suddenly becomes your benchmark of, while he is an ethical person, it wasn't supposed to be necessarily a benchmark all the time for that. So I think that when you take, you know, these characters and you know, they have a specific way, like, for example, Robert, you mentioned I believe it was you, so excuse me if it's not you, you mentioned, or someone mentioned that her storyline of this wish thing, you know, like, if anybody, you know, if you have the lasso of truth, why would you ever have any issue with, you know, ethics and behavior? Right. You would be the person who is the most ethical person, you know, of everyone. So why should there be any ethical dilemma? It's like, at that point, when you have that level of responsibility as a character, it doesn't make sense, because it creates an inner conflict, and she wouldn't, maybe that's what they were trying to do, but it's not true to the character. If you look at the sheet, you know, whoever created
it was ham-fisted, not good.
I don't know who created Wonder Woman, so I'm sorry for those purists out there, but I'm sure in that original sheet, a spec sheet of what her characteristics were, it was not, you know, she has an inner conflict of, you know, whether it's ethical or not to have a genie make wishes for you. That's not something that was ever on her description or category. So it just doesn't make any sense. And so, you know, while it could have been fine for another character in the story, she shouldn't even have been involved in that. That shouldn't have been any part of her arc. You know, she's supposed to be, you know, she's got a lasso of truth.
Totally, you know, true.
Come on. You know, so when you have entertainment that's not entertaining, and you know something, even the most artsy of us can appreciate a film, you know, like I said, like the Exterminator. I appreciate that film. You know, and I appreciate it
because it's awesome.
Yes. I appreciated how my father, you know what I liked about it was how my father and brother loved that film. Yeah. And the look on their faces as they sat in that theater, and you couldn't pry them away. Their eyes were glued to the screen. They wanted to see what was happening next. You know something? That was their experience. And I got to see how happy they were in a film that is an excellent film. And for, as far as I'm concerned, then for entertainment value alone, even with such a serious subject, it's fulfilled its purpose. He's not trying to convince you of anything. If you don't want to go to New York and, you know, and have anything to do with that, Glickenhaus is fine. He doesn't want to have any. He doesn't care whether you like it or not. Right. But at the same time, he's not telling you. Excuse me. He's not telling you you're wrong for having your own opinion.
Yeah. Listen, you kids. I need to go to bed because tomorrow night we have a real guest star. I want to thank Russ and for being here. Thank you both. Great to have you. Thank you for streaming. I'm a little 3 sheets to the wind. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to get up and feed the dogs.
Just one second, Russ. Where can we find you?
Yes.
Where can we find you?
Oh, I'm not really on social media or anything like that. I guess if you wanted to check out the books, please don't. But if you do it, you can just Google my name. I'm sure it will come up in Amazon or something like that. So
how do you what is your name as an author? How do you go by?
Russell Whitfield.
All right, no middle initial, no middle name.
No. I kind of wanted. If it had been higher, I would have gone with RB Whitfield. But actually, it's just a schlocky thing that a 17-year-old Dungeons and Dragons player, everything that you want in that. If you're a 17-year-old D&D player, that's what I tried to throw into that book. So.
But that's good. But 17-year-old D&D players are not published novelists. So there you go. Some are, maybe. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank everyone who wrote in or was in the show. I want to thank Russ Whitfield. By the way, check out his books. Go get them. This was a great impromptu show, even with our technical difficulties. We will be back tomorrow. Let me just put this video or the watch this. I mean, come on now. Wait. We are getting CK Smile, the lead singer of the Swiss metal band Chaosium. Who doesn't want to meet him? Well, tomorrow night, you will. So, as the Evil Dead would say, join us. There you go. So that's what's happening tomorrow. I want to thank you both for being here. I want to thank my moderating staff, Darren Seeley. Who else is here? Dean Mikatich is here. The Richard, is he here? I don't know. Mike Bodden, Bunyan Snipe. It's been a long time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for supporting the channel via super chats and tips. And if you want to send me a letter, you can at the Burnettwork.net. So do that. Do that now. I need to go to bed. I'm drunk and tired, and I need some sleep. And I one of my dogs will lean on my chest, and I'll feel better.
Aww.
So there you go.
Well, thank you so much, guys. It was so lovely to meet you. Thank you, Rob, for everything you do. Brilliant to meet you. I'm a fan, so it's so great
nice
to finally meet you both.
We need to get in touch, Russ. We need to get in touch.
Please, I don't know how to. I've got a website. If you go to russellwhitfield.com, you can email me from there. I'd love to chat more.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both. I mean, my God, another great show. You never know what's going to happen on Midnight Metal. Even through technical difficulties, we keep the party going. That's what all good party people do. So thank you both. Thank you all for being here. We will see you tomorrow night. Actually, look at me. Look at this technical difficulty. I'm just frozen. I'm pensive. Look at what I look like. Well, thank you. But I look like a douche here. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, why did my technical, what? And I haven't quite figured out that I'm effed yet. But anyway, thank you for all being here. And this is once again the 18th episode of Midnight Metal. I can't even believe we are still doing this show. But you know what? It's because of all of you. So thanks for being here. And we'll be back tomorrow with the lead singer of Chaosium. And that said, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is be on Midnight fucking Metal, and we'll tell you stories. That said, have a better night.